Sword of Coming Chapter 917. After Lu Qin left Beiju Luzhou Qingliangzong, he did not return to Baiyujing directly. Instead he took a trip to Qinghao country. In that Dongxian street he met the scholar Qin who was supposed to be Li. Returning to Aquarius Island sneakily, to meet an old friend who is far from his own realm but cannot underestimate his identity. After crossing the sea from Beiju Luzhou all the way to the south, and looting over the land of Aquarius Island, it is not surprising that the sage of the Confucian temple who sits in the sky is also an old acquaintance. He talked a few words with Lu Qin. Lu Qin felt that the retelling of the old with less affectionate words could be regarded as a happy conversation. As for what the other party thinks, Lu Qin can't control it. Hangzhou Yuzhang County, a new logging institute was established. The first chief officer of the logging institute was a Beijinger named Lin Jingqing. I heard that he had previously served in the Yamen of the Ministry of War of the capital, serving as the second in command of the post office. This Master Lin did not have any new officials to take office, nor did he do everything. No matter it was just enjoying blessings, things were generally considered to be quite satisfactory, and the procedures that should be followed were all gone through. For example, put on official robes, bring the subordinate staff of the government office, and go to the local Wenwu temple and Qinghuang temple to offer incense. Because the logging yard is a new government office, there is nothing to hand over with the predecessor's official duties, which saves a lot of trouble. In the night, a young Taoist priest wearing a lotus crown didn't knock on the door, but pushed the door straight in. He sat on the bench next to the brazier, stretched out his hand to warm himself, shuddered, and asked with a smile, "Ning Yao's assassin still hasn't been able to find out the main envoy behind the scenes?" Lin Jingqing put down the books in his hand, raised his eyelids, sat still, and turned a deaf ear to the question of the third master Baiyujing. Lin Jingqing just clasped his fists and said kindly, "I have seen Master Lu." Lu shook his sleeves. "Which one of us is with whom is hypocritical? Having a fortune-telling booth in the small town for more than 10 years, both sides know everything well. Just like Chao Gingxin of the Kiln Affairs Supervision and Administration Bureau, the young mountain owner of the Luapa Mountain who needed to stare most, but the two sides never met to chat. On Lu Chen's side so did Lin Jingqing. Lin Jingqing is a native of the Lizhu Cave, and even the second monk personally selected by Embroidery Tiger. Otherwise, the dignified master of the country will not be so boring to help the son of an official of the Supervision and Administration Department to help name it. As for the last person who was appointed to the post, as soon as Jiazi's deadline expires, even if he resigns without success, Embroidery Tiger Chui Huang is naturally not satisfied. Before this person, there is actually a foreign sword fairy who has served as the longest time as a Lizhu Cave heavenly goddess, and the other party also has a very special hidden identity, a priest. This was the last time I met with Chui Guosher and revealed the secret to Lin Jingqing. This sword repairman, who quietly left his hometown and came to the world through the upside-down mountain, was the last priest in the history of the Great Wall of Jianqi. In fact, when the old man Yang visited the Lizhu Cave for the first time in Ningyao, he leaked the secret for her, but the old man said at the time that the clouds covered the mist, and only said that there was a sword repairer from a foreign country who died near the small town. Before that, the sword repairman had collected all the landscapes and experiences and compiled them into a book, and finally left a book of landscape travels which he would occasionally read. At that time, Ningyao was just skeptical. She didn't think deeply at the time. After that, old man Yang changed the subject and asked her one last question: what is the voice of her heart? The young girl has an enlightenment in an instant, and in an instant she enters a mysterious state similar to Buddhism meditation and Taoist heart fast. Lin Jingqing guessed that the sword repairman, one of the 3 officials of the Great Wall of Sword Qi, was rushing to the old sword strip under the stone arch bridge, but for some reason he could not get a certain answer, so he probably stayed in the Lizhu Cave. Going to serve as a gangster? It's just that it was still too early before Cui Yun became the teacher of Dei, and the Song clan of Dei was always kept in the dark, and he did not know how deeply involved with the Great Wall of Jianqi. But this priest, besides the sword repair on the face, has a more concealed identity. He is a master of martial arts who is already on the top of the mountain and has nowhere to go. In the history of the Great Wall of Sword Qi, there are only a handful of martial arts in the end. The last one is by Lian Shuang, and she is still a woman. This is absolutely unreasonable. The martial arts of the Great Wall of Sword Qi are again suppressed by the fate of Kendo, and the number of pure martial arts in the 9 realms and 10 realms should not be so scarce. Independence. Because someone monopolized the martial arts. Haoran, the first person in martial arts in the world, Longbo, Zhang Tiaoxia. This person did not lose heart in the past years. At the peak of boxing, xianxia at that moment can be described as a spirited spirit, and the of war will be above the limit. It is completely regarded as something in the bag, and there is a great spirit of giving up to others. It turned out to be above the sea, and once had a questioning punch with an unknown pure martial artist. Zhang Qiaoxia did not lose and did not win. But after that, Zhang Qiaoxia turned to practice and eventually became the longest-lived martial artist in Haran's history. Zhang Qiaoxia never recognized the many reputations and titles given to him by the outside world, such as the #1 martial artist in the world. The reason why Lu Qin knew about this was due to his anonymous disciple, Lao Zhouzi Xianxia. Xianxia happened to be the only bystander of Xuanhuan. In that battle at the pinnacle of martial arts, the figures of both sides were as fast as thunder, and the speed was as fast as the sword repairing flying swords. The sea collapsed everywhere within a radius of thousands of miles, and the bottom was everywhere. Lu Qin even guessed that the priest had a place on a certain mountain. It's a pity that Lu Qin is a cultivator on that weird mountain and he can't go. The world has not moved, the treasure bottle is moving, the world is in chaos, the treasure bottle is still. As if he had guessed what Lin Jingqing was thinking, Lu Qin lowered his head and stared at the flames, rubbed his hands gently and smiled. This idiom is also a saying that the poor Tao walked in the long river of time in the small town back then. Only then did he find it. A little bit of clues was finally calculated based on this clue. From this, it can be seen that this priest is very accurate in fortune-telling. Lin Jingqing saw that Lu Qin actually took out a few sweet potatoes from his sleeve and put them in the brazier. Seeing that he did not plan to leave for a while, he had to ask, "I don't know if Master Lu is visiting tonight, what can I advise?" Lu Qin raised his head and smiled and asked, "Do you know what things you've been superfluous and what are you doing to take advantage of the trend?" Lin Jingqing said indifferently, "Since it's all past, it's better not to know." Lu Qin raised a hand, the brilliance overflowed, the strands of light gathered together, and the stars were the outline of an old Lizhu cave. Those starlights were some bright and dazzling, some were dull and unclear, some were mild and some were extremely dazzling. Moreover, there are differences in light intensity, size and color. When Lu Qin slowly twisted his wrist, it was like a world that hadn't moved before. With a oneness he began to slowly spin. Lu Qin raised his other hand, twisting his in the shape of a chess piece, as if twisting two spots of light with very different brightness. He was probably worried that Lin Jingqing would not be able to see it. Lu Qin's fingertips showed the appearance of two people. They were fish baskets attached to their waists. There is also a thin and dark straw shoe boy, Qin Pingan. Lu Qin twisted out two more rays of light. It was the great Sui Prince Gao Xian and an elderly follower, with together and gently pushing the two of them as if they were walking backwards, going further and further away from that Lier and Qin Pingan. Lu Qin then gently put the light back, and suddenly one speeds up the rotation, the world runs like a person, speeds up the pace, reluctant to give up day and night, the dark spot of light that symbolizes Qin Pingan gradually brightens and finally in an instant Big put the light on, and then it seemed to hit something as if a hammer hit the embryo of the sword, sparks sputtered. Was a short-lived end. After the vision was over, the light returned to darkness, gradually dissipated, and went to others in the small town. "Look, I was scolded by old man Yang. Lier asked for it. This is called good intentions to do bad things. You are actually the same, don't you believe it? The poor Tao has to give an example. The serpentine stones that you deliberately thrown into the Dragonbeard River that night are not considered low grade. You should have left it to your son Lin Shui. Family background, right? The result seemed to be a great help. It was able to help the boy in Mud Bottle Alley and increase his harvest by 70% to 80%. Do you know that, in fact, the serpentine stone that Ma Kuxuan was able to get arbitrarily was supposed to be Qin Ping and put it in the basket? Lin Jingqing, you do the calculations for this account. Did Qin Ping make a profit or lose it? Anyway, you have to look at it, it must be a big loss. Lin Jingqing remained unmoved and said, I don't care about these twists and turns. Does Qin Pingan now give you the most headache? Lu Qin didn't deny the matter, nodded, but quickly asked with a smile. Then if Pang Dao talks a lot, Lin Shui lost a certain opportunity because of your father's partiality? For example, Pang Dao gave Xia the spiritual thing should have fallen into the hands of Lin Shou? Lin Shui lost even more blessings invisibly? There will be a series of things, and naturally there will be a series of nothing. The gains and losses here must not be ignored. Back then, poor Dao set up a stall and gave people a fortune-telling. It was a hint to you. Lin Zhengcheng's state of mind is always unwavering and he chuckles, Is there any prospects for my own cub, how big or small, you will be in charge? Your surname is Lin? It seems that there is no one named Lin Qin on our family tree. Lu Qin choked for a while, letting the little world hang in the air, rotating on its own, reaching out to touch the sweet potato in the charcoal fire, and sighed, "I'm so annoying." It's no wonder that Chui Yang would choose this person to be the deity. The realm is really not high, but he is a rock-solid man. Moreover, the simple folk customs of the small town, what is going on in the end, one by one talks to people's hearts. Lin Jingqing stood up, walked around the desk, and sat by the brazier. He picked up a piece of sweet potato of baked potatoes, patted the dust, and started to chew. Lu Xun smiled and reminded, "Eat slowly and be careful of being hot." Lin Jingqing glanced at the small world that was suspended in the air. Is a little bit bright, almost immobile. For example, there are Aunt Feng in the highest restaurant in the small town, Lu Wei, a monk from the Yin Yang family, and an old coachman from the old Tianting Lei department. There are some light spots, bright like stars hanging high. It is Ruanxiu and Li Lu. There is also Su Han, a sissy kiln worker who is similar to the reincarnation of the rain god. And the girl Ji Ke who escaped from the Iron Lock well. At the same time, everyone in the small town has continuous threads of cause and effect, or they are linked together or quietly broken. In the end, everyone was wrapped together. There were few monks, but the thread was thick, and there were more long threads on the ordinary masters, but they were slender. Only the Yang family medicine shop was covered by a cloud of mist. Lu Qin gnawed the sweet potato in his hand and suddenly exclaimed, "Qin Pingan is too vengeful, and I haven't done anything. I'm the only one who has a lot of grievances against me. You are an elder. You have to take care of him, take care of him. Now that you talk on Qin Pingan's side, it's better than anyone else." Lin Jingqing reminded, "It seems that there is nothing really done." Looks real. Lu Xun said to himself. Furthermore, when the small town catastrophe came, it was not only our Bai Yujing immortal who showed up, the three religions, the saints of the family, but all appeared. At most, it was the one in our Ziki building who had a bad temper. He took the lead. But it's different. From beginning to end, he didn't fight with Qi Jingchen, nor did he say anything cruel and kind. Why didn't Qin Pingan go to seek revenge with the vice master of the Confucian temple, nor to look for Buddhism theory? So he just caught me, and if he had a good temper he would bully, right? I was wronged. Lin Jingqing made a weird move, squeezing out a smiley face and then put it away in an instant. It's like having heard a joke. After the show is over, Zhang Lu will teach you to continue telling the next joke. Lu Qin raised his sleeves and pointed to this guy. Students, we are all scholars. No wonder Lin Shou didn't kiss you when he was young. The saint embraces one as the world style, and knows the glory and humiliation as the world valley. Chui Yang is the son of Lin Jingqing, named Shuyi. He even helped Lin Shuyi think about the word, when he was crowned. The surname is Lin, the name is Shuyi, and the word is new. It is advisable to be cautious when the sun is changing. Seeing that the third head teacher of Bai Yujing was still pretending to be stupid, Lin Jingqing raised his hand and held it with both fingers as if shaking with a book. Lu Xun sighed. Too smart is not good, it is easy to be speechless. What Lin Jingqing meant is probably that you and I are both flippers of the stories in the town. Almost all the clues, context, entanglement, and trends are written clearly in the book, and you and I can also read them clearly. Chu, then don't pretend to be foolish. Lu Xun sighed. If your majesty the emperor can move you, you can speak Qin Pingan, and promise that Dali will be the new national teacher. Lin Jingqing was silent. Being a person and doing things, in fact, couldn't be simpler. Just want to understand that I am me. Since I am me, I will definitely do a lot of things that should be done and not do many things that should not be done. Just like when Lin Shou went to the school when he was a year old, he went home from get out of class once, his eyes were red and he seemed to cry. Lin Jingqing was good to see at the time and asked him what was going on. Lin Shuyi said that a classmate cheated and he reported it, and then he didn't want anyone to take care of him. Do you think you are wrong? No. Doing the right thing, will there be a good return? Isn't it? Don't everyone say that good people get good rewards? Not certainly. What? Otherwise, what do you want to do when you study? Father, Mr. Chi talked to me and it was about the same meaning, but I think Mr. Chi said it better, saying that I should believe that good people are rewarded, and that is not the same as Dad. Dad, when you go to school, my son was stuck in the alley and beaten like me? Go and read. Oh. By the way, who hit you? Fatty horse in Erlang Lane. Just him? Roll? I really can't blame my son for being afraid of his father. The father and son are not close to each other. Lin Jingqing only needs to see Lin Shuyi when he was a little bit stubborn. For example, he dared to play without finishing his schoolwork. Lin Jingqing went home from the Kiln Affairs Supervision Office and gave it to himself. When he met, he would directly serve this little ancestor with his belt, hitting Lin Shou all the time, and often hid under the bed and couldn't get out. The reason why Lin Jingqing disapproved of the school founded by the Qin family in Longwuxi was because he felt that those masters were too polite with the educated children, and the sages in the book said too much and played too much. Xiao, those rulers and feather dusters are just a display, especially a few old masters who have reached the age, who are self-reliant on the status of a literary magnate, a scholar, and a generation of literary sects, and pay attention to a gentleman who speaks but does not use his hands. Later, Lin Jingqing couldn't stand it. He made an exception and wrote a secret book, and soon transferred a group of young masters to the school. Compared with the old people invited by the Qin family of Longwuxi, the latter had lower knowledge and less ink, but a bunch of them were expected to win the list. The titled De Li Juzi gave lectures to a group of Mongolian children wearing open pants, of course more than enough, and they are more enthusiastic about teaching. In this way the Qin family in Longwuxi was also a little relaxed. After all, those old people who wouldn't want to go back to their hometowns to hide in the fields, to have a sweetheart, or to give lectures in the local academy, so as to train a few new scholars in their hometown? Lu Qin glanced at Lin Jingqing and did not disturb the filial piety of the father and son, who was rare in the last generation. He was silent for a moment. After Lin Jingqing calmed down, he changed the subject. If Xianhu is still there, or even if it is replaced by Song Jisin as the emperor, Gao Xian will not succeed in succeeding the emperor of the Sui dynasty. Lizhu Dongtian had the 5 biggest opportunities on the table that year, and the Prince Gao Xian of the Great Sui dynasty got one of them. Later, as the price of the alliance between the Gao family and the Song family in the Sui dynasty, Gao Xian once served as a proton and studied at the Linlu Academy in Piyun Mountain for many years. When Gao Xian returned to the Great Sui dynasty and succeeded as the emperor a few years ago, he actually took over the mess of a broken heart. The Great Sui dynasty was tantamount to surrendering without a fight, actively ceding several vassal states including Huang Tinghua to the Dali Song clan. This is simply a great humiliation for the arrogant De Sui temple civil and martial arts. Wait until the great achievements of the Song family of one country and one continent were completed. For the court of the Sui dynasty, it was another incalculable damage. Only a little energy remained, and it was crushed by the great iron cavalry. In this case, the Prince Gao Xian took the initiative to abandon the Golden Carp and gave up the path of proving longevity. Not to mention, from the Golden Core realm all the way to the lower 5 realms, Yang life was greatly damaged, and it became the 7th in life. It has been rare for 10 ancient times so that it does not violate the Confucian temple ritual system, and can inherit the rule and become the emperor. Lu Qin smiled and said, the emperor in 30 years, can do a lot of things. What's more, human fate has a definite number, but there is no death. Since ancient times, there has been no heaven to say because this is the heaven. Anyway, poor Dao is very optimistic about this emperor of the Sui dynasty. Maybe he is the lord of ZTE who is well known in history. Clap and stand up. Lu Qin came to the desk. There was a steelyard on the desk. Old objects were placed on the desk. It was probably a meeting gift given by the old man Yang when Lin Jingqing took office. A steelyard. 16 tails is one caddy. Of course, it is very knowledgeable and exquisite, because the 16 scale stars signify the Big Dipper, the Southern Dipper, and the 3 stars of Fu, Lu, and Shou. Predecessors urged future generations not to deceive others, or 1 or 2 will be short of luck, 2 or 2 will be lost, and life will be short of 30 or 2. Therefore, people who are in business are the most taboo to be short-lived. This makes people watch the sky. Lu Qin picked up the ancient scale, twisted it with 2 fingers, gently rotated it and sighed softly. It's a pity that it's been repeatedly reminded, but it's silent. Putting down the steelyard, Lu Qin turned around and leaned against the bookcase, rubbing his hands on the table made of large wood in Yuzhang County, and sighed gently, blowing away the ball of light hanging above the brazier, like a sack of fireflies floating away. Lu Qin looking at the scene, he smiled and said, the sea is the world of dragons and the sky is the hometown of cranes. Big fish can see even the big nets burst out. Lin Jingqing sneered and said, Mr. Qi did this and has something to do with you, Lu Qin. The reason why it is not the end of the fish's death and the net breaking is just because someone rips the big net, and does not hesitate to wrap himself up. Lu Qin laughed and said, fortunately I didn't say that poor Dao is a dung stick. Brother Lin is already merciful. Lin Jingqing sneered, that's because Mr. Qi was mentioned. Lu Qin didn't care, our brother Lin just had this temper and he was used to it. If you don't flatter the top and don't deceive the next, you're a kind of person when you behave as a person, behave and be an official. Zhao Yu admired Song Jisin the most. He felt that whether he was playing chess or studying, he was far from being like a window. Song Jisin looked down on Zhao Yu from the bottom of his heart. The two sides failed to truly agree on the road, so Zhao Yu failed to do so. Its finishing, in the end Song Mu just became a Dali domain king, not an emperor. Zhao Yu was the same. After riding an ox cart and leaving his hometown, he encountered an embroidered tiger blocking the way. The boy handed over the seal presented by his husband. There is nothing wrong with it, but in this way it is far away. Yao, Zhou of Yao turns into shaking of shaking, and laboring of. On the wall of Mud Bottle Alley, Qin Pingan was a lousy person, and he spoke out to save others. Naturally, it was out of good intentions. Dang Na did indeed save Lu Xianyang from the feet of Lu's children. But in the dark, it belongs to the upper body of the fire. The fate of the two parties is not complementary to each other or even a kind of conflict, so there are all kinds of ups and downs between the two sides, such as Lu Xianyang still almost died in our Xinjiang mountain. The world moves in the hands of the great sage. Lu Xianyang, Xinjiang mountain, and Qin Pingan on the 5th day of May only waited for the three parties to disperse, but Xinjiang mountain remained in place, and the other two friends, each displaced and far away from their hometowns, then came together to ask Jian Xinjiang mountain. It's just that there are so many gains and losses here, which belong to the blessings and misfortunes. If it weren't for the kind-hearted workmanship of the Sissy kiln, that night in the ancestral house of Ni Ping Lane, the heart was blessed for a moment, and in the end only the box of rouge was buried in the alley outside the door, instead of being visible to Qin Pingan, or even hidden underground in the courtyard. Otherwise, in the long run, it will not be a reward, but it will be kind but harmful. Lao Chai, who opened the wedding shop, had repeatedly told his grandson Hu Feng not to approach Qin Pingan. It was a very wise choice. Lu Xin sighed. Wanfeng dislocation. Jilan is in charge. There is grass in the field. Wanfeng, who left his position without authorization, and Jilan, who was born in the wrong place, had to be eradicated because it was easy to breed turbidity. Why talk about the humble and annoying barnyard grass? Zhao Yao, who is now serving as the attendant of the Ministry of Criminal Justice, has the word Yao, the word of the old labor, the ballad of ballads, the distant distance, and the universal, and the luxuriant appearance of the grass and wood strips. Song Jisin, who brings together the dragon spirit, Zhao Yao, who is responsible for the finishing touch, Qin Pingan, who was born on the 5th day of May, Lu Xianyang, who was born in ancient times to raise dragons, and Hu Feng from the wedding shop. The mountains and clear waters are beautiful, the vegetation is luxuriant, and the wood is harvested to make fire. With the highest ritual in ancient times, the gods are worshipped. On the day when the sun is the most prosperous in the world, the rivers and rivers of the earth are cooked to cast the sun. Taking fire from the sky, the fire ignited to the sky, the smoke soared like a dragon, and the light of the fire went straight out of the sky, forming a long river of time on its own. This is a new way to the sky without the need to ascend. This is fate. Is almost an established fate. Lu Xin said, so the person who persuaded Qin Ping's father back then did not only reveal the life of the porcelain, but also anticipated the arrival of this day. Smashing the natal porcelain is tantamount to turning off the old road. It may not be really avoided, but it has a ray of life. When we look back, it turns out that it is true. Good intentions do bad things, and bad intentions can do good things. There are many strange people and many strange things in this world. Lin Zhengqing's face was gloomy and said, "It's you?" On the way Lin Zhengqing left Lizhu Dongtian to take up a post in the Capital War Department, the national teacher Cui Yang once waited at a post. After a replay, Cui Yang once commented on the three head teachers of Baiyujing. Even if there is a world across, even if he is defeated by the great Tao of the world, Lu Qin can't stop Lu Qin from restoring the 14th stage peak cultivation base. Can't stop a whole Baiyujing from crossing the world, falling from the sky, and landing on the sky above the Lizhu cave of Aquarius Island. Lin Jingqing once asked a question at the time, just to target Mr. Qi alone as for? Cui Yin said with a smile, Lu Qin and Qi Jingchen have no major disputes, but as long as it is for that big teacher, Lu Qin will be there. On the one hand, the head teacher by Yujing is the person Lu Qin respects the most. In addition, Lu Qin has a bigger appeal, which is out of selfishness because back then, Lu Qin felt that a certain mystery could be answered by his senior. It is this Taoist ancestor who can really accomplish something. When Lu Qin is indifferent, no one can beat it. When Lu Qin wanted something, no one could beat him. With Lu Qin, it doesn't mean that Qi Jingchen must have no second choice. But because of the appearance of Lu Qin, Qi Jingchen finally had only two choices. It's like a game of chess. When it comes to the final stage, one side has the upper hand. To win or win, But the number of winning moves that has the upper hand, there are only 1 or 2 moves to follow. You win your chess game and I win my chess game. For example, suppose Lu Xianying is carrying a few valuable porcelains in his hand, and he wants to find Qin Pingan in an Iping alley. No matter how you walk through the streets and change routes in the town, there are only 2 ways to go in the end, passing by the door of Gukan's house or not. Lu Xin's existence is just a spoiler who doesn't deal with Lu Xianying. He is stuck at the corner of the street in front of Gukan's house. Whoever comes will fight for his life, and it is not a mystery. Even if Lu Xianying can beat that rogue, but weighing the pros and cons, he can't make it. It's unnecessary because he still has porcelain in his hand to give it to Qin Pingan. Of course he has to detour. Lu Qin laughed dumbly, raised his hand and patted the table, pretending to be angrily. What's the matter? Don't spit, people. When did you arrive in the small town? Just a few years of hard work. What can you do? Lin Jingqing will don't know. This big bowl can also be buckled on the head of the poor. Even if you don't care about your conscience, you have to show some evidence for planting and setting up trouble? Lin Jingqing frowned and said, Is it Zhou Zi? Lu Qin wiped his face, acting really tired, shook his head and said, Since it is the most possible, then it must not be. Zhou Zi always likes to stop when he does things. It is not Zhou Zi's style to enter the game in person like this. The Dao heart is broken directly, but it's good to fall. Lu Qin stretched out his hand and patted the crown on the top of his head, then stretched his arms, raised his palms and shook. There are gods 3 feet above his head. Whether outsiders believe it or not, anyway, poor Dao is very particular. Lu Qin was silent for a moment, pinching his fingers and counting, and then suddenly laughed. Poor Tianhuan, originally just hid the Cicada Slough Cave sky in the Lizhu Cave sky, thinking that he could deceive himself, he could cross the sea without knowing the sky. In the end it is shallow. Now, this kind of self-deception can really be something that anyone can learn and do? Lao Chai kept his promise and did not covet the golden cicada. It is estimated that even Lao Chai did not expect that he was still being taken by his precious grandson. To have this blessing of obviously close at hand, remote in the sky, it is indescribable. If you say the old saying, well, you can't ask for 1/10 of a foot in your life. If you don't ask for the opposite, it may be possible. But when it comes to spoiling younger generations, no one can treat Li Huai better than old man Yang. Therefore, if you say that stupid people have stupid blessings, you must believe it. Next time poor Dao accepts closed disciples, he must accept someone who is not so smart. Lu Xin looked at the Lin Jingqing. As for the whereabouts of the cicadas, you can tell Qin Pingan about the whereabouts of the cicadas. Lin Jingqing twitched the corners of his mouth, obviously not intending. There were many funeral shops in the small town, but there was only one wedding shop. The shopkeeper was Hu Feng's grandfather. After the old man passed away, his real name, Chai Dao Huang, was used on the tombstone. That's why Lu Qin takes a mouthful of old chai. The old man used to be the top spot of all the engagement shops in the ancient world, that is, the so-called Yulao. In later generations the old place was there in the past called Matching Mountain. Is in charge of a marriage book and red line, as well as all the words of the matchmaker. And his grandson Hu Feng. Guyuehu. Hu Feng and the banks of the Jilin River in Tonggishao are both descendants of the celestial craftsmen of the ancient Moon Palace. It's just that Hu Feng's bloodline needs to be more pure, just like the difference between the concubines in the portal of future generations. Lu Qin hurriedly walked back to the brazier and sat down. Lin Jingqing would eat all the sweet potatoes if he didn't go back. He picked up the last piece, patted the dust off and breathed hard. He asked with a smile on his face, Brother Lin, it's a poor way. By Yujing's 3 head teachers who are all walking sideways in the Qingming world, who dare to take a breather with Pindao, now you have no backing, and you dare to speak so aggressively with Pindao. What? Lin Jingqing said indifferently, I don't do anything wrong in my life, and I am not afraid of ghosts knocking on the door in the middle of the night. Lu Xin complained, when you meet your fellow countrymen in a foreign country, you should have tears in your eyes. Brother Lin is cursing again. Lin Jingqing asked directly, when will Lu Xianxia return to his hometown? Lu Xin complained, this is really hurtful, don't forget we are fellow villagers. Lin Jingqing is extremely insincere, oh, not to mention Master Lu, someone Lin really forgot about this. Lu Xinqi smiled and said, forget it, if others don't know it, you a bad guy won't know. Poor Dao is tantamount to surrendering your life. He accompanies Qin Pingan through the barren world, makes meritorious deeds and looks at the world. Lin Jingqing nodded and said, it's because I know this, that's why I'm willing to talk so much nonsense with Master Lu tonight, otherwise I would have issued an eviction order. Lu Qin raised his hands, made a sullen dantian posture and said to himself, don't be angry, don't be angry. Don't commit it, don't commit it. Lin Jingqing hesitated for a while, clasped his fists and said solemnly, just talk about this matter, I'm very unsuccessful, I'm convinced I'm a man. Isn't it still cursing? But Lu Qin smiled brightly, this kind of heartwarming kind words Brother Lin said earlier, maybe the poor Dao would be willing to guard Lin Shuyi's nephew. It's only from Yuanying to Yupu, not from the immortal. It's a trivial matter to rise to the top. If Zhang Jiaolu is willing to change his surname, I can add a name next time I edit the genealogy, and it will be no problem on the first page. Anyway, the ancestral temple scents are all jianghu. Brother Lin, if you chat like this you will be boring. Pang Dao is also a temperamental person who is fierce, and the 6 relatives don't recognize it. Then I change my last name? Brother Lin, please respect yourself. Seeing that Brother Lin began to pretend to be dumb again, Lu Qin had to take the initiative to speak. It's just a matter of these few days. The Confucian temple has issued an order to evict guests earlier than Brother Lin. Poor Dao must leave the Howren world by the end of this year. Once the beginning of spring he will be poor. Dao is closed. In the final analysis I still can't bear to go with the poor road, besides that, the poor road can't think of a second reason. Lin Jingqing said, I heard that the second head teacher just accepted a disciple. Lu Xun was surprised, why doesn't the poor Tao know about this? Hey brother you, what's going on? Don't say hello to my brother. Rong poor Dao pinch points to count. Oh, by coincidence the surname is Yang, who is nicknamed Zhao Xianjin, or we are a fellow of the world who is originally from the Taoist school. The second brother is fine, it is to learn from our master. Accept a foreigner as a disciple? The problem is, how can Yang Ning of Luzhou and Beiju compare with himself? The young man is the second elegant Yao Qing. Fortunately he is not brother Yes closed disciple, otherwise he must stop him. Lu Xun stood up and shook his sleeves. When everything is over, it seems to be meaningless. Just like when Qin Pingyan had temporarily borrowed a Dao Fa with himself, he would inevitably feel emotional. The world is small when his realm is high. In fact, this is also the common feeling of all the Ascending Realm and 14th Realm great monks. The state of the world is human, the mountains and rivers are complex, and it looks like a normal appearance like carved out of a mold. In the Western Buddhist country, Lu Qin did not dare to go anymore. The barren world was temporarily unable to go. In addition to returning to the barren bays, there was actually an existence that lived the same life as the barren world. Name. Born in the land of barbarians in the wilderness. Similar to that little girl in xianxia. How old is Jiachuan now? For a few years. Of course, he is still the same as Howren, the old fisherman who was unwilling to punt for the most holy master in his party back then. As for Qingming Tianxia and Western Buddhism, there are naturally similar existences. At the beginning, Lu Qin knew the inside story of this matter, so he came up with the phrase, heaven and earth live with me, and everything is one with me. The ancestors of the 3 teachings would definitely meet each of the Taoists before going out. Dare to ask Shinsai? The only way is emptiness. The spirit of bathing in the snow, in addition to filthy tiredness, and the emptiness of one's heart is the best way to gather in the bosom. Don't ask outside, ask for more blessings. After thinking about it again, it is wisdom. The sky is healthy, the gentleman strives for self-improvement, the terrain is great, and the gentleman carries things with virtue. Therefore, a gentleman is cautious and stays away from ghosts and gods. Lin Jingqing stood up, I want to see you off. Lu Qin smiled and said, compared with the broken porcelain pieces of Lao Sishan, it is even more inconspicuous. It seems to be those saggers. Those saggers. Is like the preacher of those exquisite porcelains, but also the guardian who left silently after protecting the mountains and rivers. In Lu Qin's view, the real sagger between heaven and earth is probably the parents of all children. Lin Jingqing asked suddenly, the Sephora wood sword Qin Pinggan took away from the small town was the first time he traveled to the Great Wall of Sword Qi. It seemed to be handed over to the old sword immortal, but he never returned it to the priest of the Great Wall of Sword Qi. Does it matter? Lu Qin curled his lips. Pan Dao was no longer in the town at that time, not to mention that this incident was obviously Qi Jingchen's actions. Let Pin Dao guess how. Lu Xun also asked a question. Now at the entrance of the warehouse of the Kiln Affairs Supervision and Administration Bureau, do you still replace the Spring Festival couplets every year? Lin Jingqing shook his head and said, it hasn't been changed for many years, it is the meaning of the national teacher. In the past, the Kiln Affairs Supervision and Construction Administration had a heavily guarded warehouse, which was responsible for storing all kinds of imperial porcelains produced by firing, and they would be secretly sent to the capital on a regular basis after they were checked and accepted correctly. In those years when Lu Qin set up a stall, he sneaked there a few times. It's filled with porcelain and it is dazzling and beautiful. But Lu Qin didn't rush too seductively. Every time he got there, he took out a small bench to sit on, closed his eyes and listened. Listened to the faint sound of the opening of the ice-cracked porcelain, like a string of wind bells, so it was described by the masters as a kind of stunned wind, ding-ding-dong-dong like the sound of heaven. There is a pair of couplets posted at the door of the warehouse. As usual, they are written by the saints who are sitting in town. They are used to bid farewell to the old and welcome the new. Lu Xun remembers the last time he went to the warehouse. A spring festival couplet written last year was hanging outside the door. In the sound of reading, the weather is smooth and everything is surplus. On Taiping Road, Guotai Minan welcomes the Chinese New Year every year. Lu Chen's figure disappeared in a flash, leaving the Hangzhou logging yard, and in a flash he came to the stone arch bridge in the small town of the past. Walking along the water in the night, the young Taoist priest came to the green cliff, alone, looking up at the sky. Look at the Milky Way in the countryside and snail horns fight for the road. The old friend should laugh at me, dream in a dream, see the body outside. Sword of Coming Chapter 9:18. Daxuan Dugwan. There are streams in the peach forest, the stream is clear and shallow and the bottom is clear. A tall old Taoist leader and a young fat man sat on a small bench, rolled up their trousers and stepped barefoot in the stream. One was drinking, and the other was carrying a large handful of freshly picked lotus seeds in his arms. Fatty Yen asked, "Old son, why did you lend the sword to Bai Yi?" A Liang said that we repaired the sword with the long beard. How can you give out such a fairy sword? Now it's fine, I just listen. There are a lot of fairy monarchs on Bai Yujing's side, and you don't respect the old grandson. They describe the relationship between you and our Xuandu temple as a dead tree and an old tree. Listen, it is very annoying. At that time, Dong Huafu talking about this with me, I was so angry that I almost went to Bai Yujing with him, thinking about how to find your place for the old grandson. No way, I am too low now, I am afraid that I will not be able to ask the sword, but I will lose it. It's the face of Shen Duguan. The old master, as a master of the sword immortal family of the world, his swordsmanship is as high as Taoism, otherwise he would not be able to sit firmly on the fifth in the world chair under his ass. Sun Daochang sneered and said, "If you have something to say, just say it. Pang Dao doesn't like roundabout words in this life." Yanzhua cautiously said, "I'm really straightforward? Say it in advance, grandson, you are not allowed to hold grudges." Sun Daochang laughed and said, "Would you like to swear a poisonous oath first?" The Taoist priests of Xuandu Temple, from old to young, from high to low, are never afraid to provoke anyone in the Qingming world, but they are only afraid of being missed by the old master. Seeing that the little fat man still didn't dare to speak, the old man smiled and asked, "Would it be more fragrant to go around a stuffy ass?" Yanzhua actually regretted talking about this with the old master, but had to send the arrow on the string. He simply broke the jar and the bamboo tube poured beans. He also told the old master of Dong Huafu's private words. Bai Yujing. The gods and gods on the side all said that if you didn't lend your sword to Bai Yi, you could indeed be among the 14th realms, but if you were among the 14th realms, you would definitely not be able to fight with their second master Bai Yujing. So I deliberately lent the fairy sword Tai Bai to Bai Yi and stayed in warriorlegend. In this way he showed his elders' demeanor, won the word of mouth, and made Bai also owe a favor from heaven to help warriorlegend. The most proud person in the world, the Confucian temple should also care about this incense, and since you are stagnant in the ascendant realm, naturally you don't have to fight with Da's second son to death, not to mention that with that truly invincible temper, you as long as he stays in the ascendant realm, he is not good at bullying people, so he has no choice but to care about you. In this way he won't kill 3 birds with 1 stone. Hearing these external rumors, the old Taoist laughed loudly, but he didn't show a slight irritation on his face. Fatty Yen asked, "Old son, are you pretending to be heroic to hide your anger? Don't tell me whoever of us is with whom, it is our own family and we can leave it alone. If it is true I'm angry, don't hide, don't say it's you. I'm going to be furious after hearing this. I have made an appointment with Dong Huafu, and I will record all the old gods who talk badly in the book, look back and wait for me to ascend to the realm. If you don't believe me, I'll go to Bai Yujing and ask the sword one by one. If you don't believe me, I can make a poisonous oath." The veteran shook the jug. "You can pull it down, just you Fatty Yen, that courage has grown in business acumen and a fat body, and now you have the status of Xuantuguan. I don't even dare to approach Bai Yujing. This kind of words only fellow Qin Xiaodao said, I believe it." Yanzhua asked tentatively, "Is that really because I'm afraid of losing to that true invincible?" The veteran nodded, "It's not that I'm afraid of losing, it's that I'm afraid of death. Once you have entered the 14th realm and you will fight Yu Duwenjian, you will naturally not only decide the victory or defeat, but will definitely decide your life and death. Yanzhua looked shocked. The elder Taoist then laughed and said, I am afraid that I am afraid that I am not afraid of death. It is not that I am afraid that the death will disappear, but I am afraid that the amount of death will not be enough. I am worried that death is not a pity. I have 1,000 years of depression in my heart and I cannot spit it out. If only half a breath, just like a hanged ghost, swaying, head is not up to the sky, feet are not stepped on the ground and a little bit upright. A man who is not upright and indifferent will die. But in the beginning the poor did not think so much. I had already stepped on the threshold with one foot in the past, and when I was about to lift the other foot, some people came to visit Xuandu Temple sooner or later, and found the poor way to chat. After that they would go to Howren. The world relaxes, and according to the agreement, if you go with a sword when you go, and when you return with a sword, you will go straight to Baiyujing. You will never stop me from asking Jian Yudo. Yanzhua asked, Master Lu? The veteran head shook his head and said, It's Lu Shaosan and Da's second brother, our respected head teacher Baiyujing. Yanzhua gave a thumbs up. Lao Sun still has a card. The veteran Taoist smiled. What is this? When I founded Xuandu Guan, there was Daozu among the guests, but Daozu, his old man, was unwilling to overpower and overshadow my limelight, so he hid his identity, but it stayed until the end of the ceremony, and Daozu had a glass of wine before leaving. Yanzhua wondered, why is there no record in the chronology of our Taoist temple for this kind of thing? The veteran Taoist asked, Tao ancestors participate in the ceremony, do we have to write a special book for our Xuandu temple? Can we still have the current Xuandu temple? Why did Taoist ancestors observe the ceremony? Yanzhua rolled his eyes around. The veteran elder Taoist smiled and said, The great master teaches you to be a guest in Xuandu temple. He didn't throw out the promise at the beginning, but persuaded the poor, not to have the common knowledge of his second junior brother. If you really want to fight, it is not a personal grievance. This is the truth of the world, the incense of Xuandu temple must be gone, but the 12th floor of the 5th city of Baiyujing must be missing a few pieces of land, and once Baiyujing is broken by the poor road, a few leftovers, there will be incomplete roads just like your Swordchi Great Wall, broken in two. It is not difficult to defeat ordinary monks, but in the eyes of such a small group of monks, Baiyujing actually has nothing, and Baiyujing itself nearly half of the meaning of existence is to wait for the future to change. It happens to be aimed at this small group of disobedient monks, who have been holding back for thousands of years. Once there is no God's restraint, what to do is conceivable. Knowing. If Tao ancestor is not there one day, there will be lawlessness and rampage. Yanzhua asked, if you didn't lend the sword to Bai Yi back then and you returned to Qingming, you would fight with Da's second son. Wouldn't Da's ancestor make a move? Take a step back and say that as the head of Da's ancestor, you can protect it as well. Baiyujing, right? Sun Dao laughed angrily. Why did Dao ancestor eat and mix these sesame mung beans? As for our great master teacher who has already completed 3,000 merits, Dao Dharma is second only to Dao ancestor. There is really no water at all. It is very different from the true invincible who is most likely to be the second son of Dao. It's just a big palm. Teaching to the Qingming world is similar to the relationship between Lixing and Howren. Many things that are easy to involve too much are not suitable for action. It is suitable for static and not to move, and the world moves. Yanzhua listened for a long time and whispered softly, It's good there is an old grandson in Shendu Temple so we can practice with peace of mind. I don't want to move anymore. After chewing some more aftertaste, Yanzhua asked curiously, the self-proclaimed Master Yu is really invincible? Impossible, right? The old Taoist smiled and said, Guess illegal. If the second Taoist is careful and unhappy, he can write a letter to our Taoist temple. The poor Taoist will write a letter immediately and report it in various landscapes. To tell the world that the nickname True Invincible is definitely not self-styled by Master Yu. Who dares not believe it, there is no end of chirping over there, but don't blame the poor Dao for coming to the door to ask the crime in person. Yanzhua smiled and said, Then he said happily, calling him brother? The old Taoist master lifted the green wine gourd, took a sip of Taohua's homemade peach blossom wine, shook it and there was no wine, so he threw the empty wine gourd into the stream and drifted away. There is no way to cultivate in vain. The veteran Taoist said with emotion, That little girl in our family is a match for nothing, really a perfect match. One of the 10 young candidates selected in the past years, one of them is a certain female crown of Shendu Guan, but she has gone to Wuxia Tianxia and now she is in the Yupu realm. Yanjua said sadly, am out of play? The old Taoist joked, don't you have Sister Chunwei? Yanjua waved his hand, don't talk nonsense like this. Sister Chunwei heard it, she didn't dare to say anything to the old grandson, she would only not deal with me in the future, and she wouldn't cooperate with me to do business anymore. Do you still remember when this autumn was about to fall, there was an old master who sat at the same table with poor Dao and Bai, and had a meal with our famous Su Zhai? Remember, why don't you remember, he is tall. If the old gentleman was not wearing a Confucian shirt at the time, I would have thought he was a man of the world. Oh, is it Yao Qing, the first assistant of the Qingshan dynasty? Yao Qing just has 4 differences? Come to Xianduguan, how can you have the qualifications to let Pindao and Bai sit there, and accompany you to eat a vegetarian meal? Pindao asked Yao Qing to go to the kitchen room to make a meal of vegetarian food. Almost. Yanjua looked suspicious. This is a bit boasting and not drafting it. Yao Qing is one of the 10 people in the Qingming world. Although the ranking is not as high as the old sun who can be on the list, who is not as high as the sky. What's more, nowadays there is an uproar outside, saying that Yao Qing will be in the 14th realm immediately after Sui Chu Gong Wu Shuangjiang. As a result, the 3 immortal corpses who were on the verge of disaster took refuge one after another, and one of them was said to have gone to Bai Yujing to seek shelter from Yu Zhangjiao. When this kid Yao Qing was young, he was just an idle bastard, a little land ruffian who likes to gamble. If it wasn't for the poor road to pass by the Wuling and generously donate to him, and give him some advice, then he has what he is now. Good luck, otherwise I don't know how many times I will be reborn now. Who is the old master? Talking to you is hard work, just guess your identity. Yanjua suddenly woke up, beat his chest and said, old grandson, didn't you say it earlier? Otherwise I would have kowtowed to the old master. Even if I worshipped the old master 3 times, it would be good to have a good fortune. I will take you all together in the future. Isn't the dumb that passed through the gates handy and effortless? By the way, I have to move back to my house. The table and the stool that the old gentleman sat on, I will enshrine it and spend money to buy it. Anyway, grandson, make a price. Yanjua suddenly said, is it a lie? A teenager wearing a tiger hat is walking by the stream. The old Taoist head immediately beckoned and smiled, Brother Bai Yi, come and help me prove it. Bai also nodded and said, it is indeed the most holy master. The veteran said with a smile, Fatty Yen, in the future remember not to complain that our Taoist vegetarian dishes are not delicious, but the most sage master has given a true evaluation. Bai also hesitated to speak but stopped. The old Taoist quickly winked, and Bai did not say anything. Before coming to Qingming world, Bai used to accompany the old scholar at the top of Mount Sui, and met the holy master. Because I want to come to Xuandu to observe and practice swordsmanship, the old scholar and the most sacred master just mentioned Su Zhai here. The old scholar said that Su Zhai, which was rumored to be Taoist temple, was not very tasty. The most sage master came to this and heard that it was really average. Therefore, after the supreme master had eaten vegetarian food in the Taoist temple, he said, a veritable name, which is actually a kind of polite remarks at the door. The veteran said with a smile, have you been to that round of Haotsai Mingyue with Jun Qian? Bai also nodded. The old Taoist looked full of envy and said, looking at the moon and lying on the pine, is it better to lie on the moon and look at the pine, one looking up at the sky, the other looking down at the ground? The scenery is very different. Bai also said, it's not difficult to watch the subject if you want to go. The old Taoist waved his hand, I can't say that. I'm really invincible right now and just lie there to block the road. I am old and dim-eyed. I stepped over with one foot and accidentally stepped on the door of our second son. It's good to say unintentional. In the meantime, just apologize if you step on the crotch, it would be too shameful. Bai Yi wanted to sit on the rock by the stream and chat a little more with the old Guanju, and then continued to walk forward when he heard the words. After Yanjua finished eating a large bag of lotus seeds, he suddenly lifted his feet from the stream and asked, old son, are you actually all ready? The world's only way is too high to forget feelings, and the way is ruthless and people are affectionate. You are born to be a lover. Sun Daochang did not directly give the answer and smiled, you younger generations don't need to think about the grievances of the older generation. It's useless to think about it anyway, just practice hard and reach the top of your own. The old Taoist stood up and said, when you get older you will think about things behind you. In fact, a certain mellow Confucian in Nan Pasuazhou also said something similar. At that time there was only one audience and he was a foreign scholar named Lu Xianyang. However, the old Guanju quickly laughed and said, but the poor Tao is talking about the ancestors. I am still young. Every day I think and think, just work hard to add meals. Before the old Taoist left, he said to the young fat man, "Think carefully about why there is only sword repair in the world. If you want to understand, you will be able to break through." A wind kite ferry has crossed the sea to the land of Tonggishao. It stopped for a while at the Xianxia ferry crossing of Qinghu Palace on Qingjing Mountain, and then continued south to Xindu Mountain. King Sun Chun hesitated during his sword practice today. He walked out of the house and planned to find Chai Wu to sit for a while. She didn't like the excitement, but fortunately Chai Wu didn't like to talk. Except that he would make a noise while drinking. She didn't. There will be nothing to look for, just right. As a result, as soon as King Sun Chun turned into a corridor, he found that there was a door standing still outside Chai Wu's house. King Sun Chun understood that Chai Wu was still cultivating and should not be disturbed for the time being. Millet Grains tiptoed towards King Sun Chun and came to the ladder. The right protector raised his hand and pinched and reminded in a low voice, "The grass and trees will have to practice for half an hour. Can you wait?" King Sun Chun shook his head and said, "I'm going to miss it. 2 quarters later, I will continue to return to the house to practice swords." Millet's face was full of admiration and he said sincerely, "You two are really horribly diligent in practice." King Sun Chun said, "You don't have to secretly help me guard the customs in a while." Millet scratched his face. "Oh, was discovered?" King Sun Chun rarely felt a little guilty and explained, "It's not annoying." After a pause, this little girl who was nicknamed a dead fish eye by Xian, still intends to tell the truth. "In fact, it is annoying. Having you open the door outside will delay my practice and feel uneasy. The success is not enough, the failure is more than enough." Xiaomi Li stomped his feet in irritation and immediately apologized. "I'm sorry, I promise not to be in the future." King Sun Chun squeezed out a smiling face, thought about it and explained again, "I blame me for not being able to speak. To be precise, it is actually not annoying, but he knows that you are guarding outside and that you are kind. I always want to say hello to you, listen to you for a few words or just tell you not to watch the door, but you don't want to withdraw from your mind halfway. If you come and go, you will delay the sword training. What you said just now, even if you have heard it, don't take it to your heart." "What kind of thing?" Millet grinned, shook his head vigorously and then patted his stomach. The good man said, "If others are willing to say a few words in their hearts, they have to remember them, and if you don't hear them, forget them, because the most beautiful things in the world are actually it's not in the mouth but in the eyes. So when you listen to what's in your ears, it often doesn't sound so good. If you can't remember what the other person is saying, you will be dumb even if you have a good temper. Don't let yourself go to your heart, otherwise no one will want to talk to us in the future." The Goodman Mountain Lord also made an analogy saying that those truthful things that don't sound so good are just like dumb lake wine. When you first drink it, it may be difficult to swallow, but when you drink it, you will find that this is what it is. The best wine in the world. There are also those self-consciously sulking, just like wine, that can change the taste and they can't drink it. Once the wine jar is opened, no one wants to drink. The good guy said that the smell of alcohol is just like a person. Good mood, accumulated a lot, it seems that no one can smell it, in fact everyone knows but can only pretend that it can't smell it, don't know. After a long time, it seems that everyone is taking care of each other, but in fact everyone is wronged, very tiring. King Sun Chun remained silent, just listening to the little girl in black. Xiaomi Li glanced at King Sun Chun and cautiously said, "Is that annoying again? Then I won't say anything." Sun Chun Wang shook his head. The little girl who seemed to be paralyzed suddenly smiled brightly, and she blinked at the millet grain. "The millet grains are so inspiring, I immediately understood it," grinned and then quickly reached out to cover his mouth, knowing that I know all the good words in my eyes are in my eyes. At that time the Luapa Mountain watched Jingyang Mountain, and the realm was the most unfathomable, probably the right guardian who only showed people in the cave mansion realm. King Sun Chun said, "The hidden officer is very kind to you." Hearing that the well-informed Bai Xian said one thing, Master Hermit seems to be currently compiling a landscape travel note, specifically for Xiaomi Li. It seemed that I had asked a friend to help me before, but I was not satisfied, so the hidden officer just started writing by himself. I didn't know the millet grains, I just laughed and said, "Good people are good to everyone." Elsewhere on the ferry, Bai Xian knocked on the door and came to the house where his good brother was a family 500 years ago. He sneakily took out a booklet and put it on the table, not thick. Bai Shou picked up the booklet and looked at some of the names and gang identities recorded above. They were all people in the world who had never heard of them. He curiously asked, "What is it for?" Bai Xian lowered his voice and said, "One day find an opportunity to beat Pei Qian, and then I will ask Pei Qian out and then wait for my hint. The cup is a number, and the heroes of all walks of life, the heroes of the quartet, will be ambushed early. Well, Pei Qian will definitely have 2 fists hard to beat 4 hands. Then let Pei Qian admit a mistake even if it has been exposed, but if Pei Qian doesn't know what is good or bad, then I can't blame me for not cultivating fellowship. It's indispensable to have a full meal of old fist. Baisho, would you like to add a name here to join in the feast? Baisho gasped. Oh, isn't it? If this list is accidentally leaked out and someone knows about it, will it be worth it? Which one can escape? 1 book in hand and 1 pot. The more Baisho thinks about it, the more something is wrong. His face is puzzled. Do you know what level she is? Baishian nodded and said, you have to know. Knowing that I know that the enemy is not dead in 100 battles, how can I not know the realm of Pei Qian? Seeing that Baisho hesitated, Baishian shook his head and put away the booklet. It's fine, I didn't expect the same name by courage and courage, but the disparity. The whitehead asked, have you read this booklet for Xiaomi? Baishian said in a huff, you treat me stupid. Who doesn't know that the millet grains and Pei Qian are in the same group? They all come from the legendary Luapa Mountain bamboo house. The threshold is very high. It is said that outside the Luapa Mountain, there is only one named Li Baoping and one named Li Huai. It belongs to the line of Zhulu, and this is the news that Baishian has finally found out after several times at the gate of the mountain, knocking sideways with the right guardian. Seeing that the whitehead seemed to be agitated, Baishian persuaded him. Let's not be around Pei Qian right away. You think, why are the 10 martial arts realms called ending? Baisho mistakenly thought that Qin Pingan and Baishian had revealed some secrets and curiously asked, why? Baishian was taken aback. His mother, this guy is really a fool, forget it, not being able to accept such an ally will drag him down. The whitehead is unhappy, stop talking half, let's talk about it. If it makes sense, I will write a name on the booklet and the picture will work. Ending of course is the realm of Tianxia Wufu. Stop here. Seeing that he was sincere, Baishian whispered to explain to the head of Bai, the aptitude of Pei Qian is relatively good, but the martial arts realm is so high she has to be obediently in the end or just wait. Let's swish and catch up with her? Isn't that reasonable? A gentleman's revenge is not too late for 10 years. If we can't get things done in the short term, let's put up with her again. 10 years is not enough. Then 20 years and 30 years. Relying on my boxing qualifications, not to mention the limit, a mountain state is always at your fingertips. Don't worry, when the time comes, I, the leader, will have no other words. I will definitely take the lead. The first one will ask Pei Qian to ask for boxing. What about you? It's my own family who will be a deputy leader, who will be responsible for chasing and intercepting Pei Qian to prevent Pei Qian from escaping when he sees a bad chance. How about that? Baisho held his forehead speechless, and was silent for a long time before he suffocated. Let me think about it again. Baishian sighed, put the booklet in his sleeve, picked up the teapot on the table with one hand, and after holding it with one hand he closed the door with his feet, walked in the corridor, shook his head. On the other side of the room, listening to Uncle Bei's whimsical plan, Miyu struggled to hold back a laugh, gave Lu Jinglong a thumbs up and whispered, accepting a good disciple, it's no wonder that I can be regarded as brothers and brothers with our hidden officer. Lu Jinglong smiled and said, in fact earlier Baisho even assassinated Qin Pingan. Miyu gloated with misfortune. It turns out that there is such a great feat, no wonder Pei Qian will target him. Sect Master Lu, can you ask something? I want to ask why my name on the clan genealogy is Qi Jinglong, but why is it often called Lu Jinglong? Miyu nodded. Lu Jinglong smiled and said, before I went to the mountain to practice my surname was Qi, but within a few years of the Taihui sword sect, our sect Master Han had a friend who said that when I was 100 years old, there would be a big hurdle. For the ordinary master this is nothing. It is the best language to say that long life is 100 years old, but it is really not a good thing to a cultivator who wants to live for a long time. That expert is just like that. Sect Master Han suggested that if you want Qi Jinglong to survive this disaster, you'd better change your surname, otherwise it will conflict with the 2 great profanities in the north and the south. In the future, you will suffer disaster if you walk outside the mountain when you get close to the water. In fact, this was at the time. This rhetoric is a strange thing because it is necessary to say, north and south, so the 3 continents east of the vast world except for Beiju Luzhou, there is indeed a Jidu, Aquarius and Tonggishao have no great blasphemy, but that person the expert speaks eloquently, coupled with this kind of mountain language, it has always been better to believe that it is not trustworthy. Sovereign Han found my master and my master found my parents again. They all felt that the change of surname was impossible. Young, but in order to ensure that my cultivation is sound, I changed my surname on the clan genealogy, but no one knows about it outside of Taihuijin's ancestor Master Hall. Maybe I am worried that I will become a joke. Moreover, my name was quietly erased on the family tree of the ancestral hall. According to the advice of an expert, when Lu Jinglong gains the Tao in the future, I can change it back and add my name in these two places respectively. Wait until I know this. Can no longer be changed. So in the later Taihui Jianzong, Qi Jinglong was similar to my real name, and Lu Jinglong was like my nickname. The latter yelled more and I didn't know why, so I yelled along. Later Beipingzu opened. Dusting into the sea, it was really named Chidu. Having said that, Lu Jinglong wrote the words Qi and Lu on the table and smiled. Is it a bit similar? Miyu tutade and said astonished, you still have a lot of doors in the world and you have more to pay attention to. Lu Jinglong said, as for the expert who helped me change my surname, my master and sect master Han have never said the origins. I have two guesses, either Zhou Zi or the person on credit. Miyu was puzzled. The person on credit? What did you do? Lu Jinglong smiled and said, lend money to someone and come back to collect debts one day. Miyu said, like the kind of loan shark like Yamashita? Lu Jinglong nodded and said, strictly speaking, it cannot be regarded as usury. On the contrary, debt collectors and asking for things will always be less than the capital. This seems to be the business purpose set by the first person on credit. So the outside world says that credit is credited. I have a personal line from a branch of the Mo family. The ordinary monks are eager to buy and sell with them on credit, especially those who are precarious, who only hate those who don't come to find themselves on credit. Qin Pingon has let me break the ground in the future. It's right to be careful no matter how careful you are. It's not that I don't want to pay off debts. It's only natural for me to pay off debts. I'm just worried about the way the other party asks to pay off the debts, which I can't accept. Miyu said, with the temper of sect master Han, since he is willing to take care of this for you, I believe I will definitely not cheat you. Lu Jinglong smiled and nodded. Miyu remembered a sword repairman from Luzhou in the North Ju and asked, the Lu Xie of Luomahi, do you have any contact? Lu Jinglong nodded and said, after leaving the Great Wall of Jianxi, I often meet with Lu Sun. People are good people and can't fault it, but the wine is a bit poor. Miyu joked, I have been in Kaik Mansion for a long time a few years ago. How come I have never seen the little deeds of this young Master Lu in any Shanshui Dibao? Lu Jinglong said, it is because of the family tradition of the Luomahe Lu family, who is pragmatic, kind, and doesn't like to show off. Luomahi in Beiju Luzhou is a big mountain, but it is not a sect. Its name is not good, but it is an expert in business. It has the background of the sect for a long time, but it hasn't asked the Confucian temple for a word for a long time. The head status, the Mule Mahelu family, has been doing boat and mountain running business on the mountain for generations. It belongs to the kind of muffled sound and fortune. For example, the Mule Mahe is the largest on the mountain, but the reputation is better than Xiong. Linzong is so much better. Beiju Luzhou is well known for its simple folk customs. Many monks often have the habit of making tens of thousands of miles. It may be just a beautiful scene. When they chat, they blush. If they don't agree, someone reports an address. The two sides went to fight. And Howren's most famous engagement is not one of them. Of course, it was the former Northeast Jaluzu and the northeastern island of the year, the famous intercontinental engagement that moved the world. And that time, the one-continent sword repairs traveled far and wide, and across the sea, the magnificent scene was hailed as sword light like water in the sky by later generations. Because it is a cross-continental long-distance ferry, many of the low-level Jaluzu Jianxiu rides on the Luomahi private ferry. All the expenses along the way are the Luomahi Liu's package, Xinjia wine, fruits and vegetables. The medicated diet from beginning to end did not allow Jianxiu to spend any snowflakes. Although there was no fight in that fight, Ju Luzhou abruptly snatched the word north from Aiizhou. From then on, there were only Beiju Luzhou and Aizhou in the world. And Lu Xie, the grandson of the contemporary patriarch, and one of the few sword repairmen among the Lu family's children, has not shown the slightest arrogance since childhood. When he was in the nascent Soul realm, he followed other sword repairs across continents and went south. Going to the Great Wall of Jianxi, Lu Sun killed a lot of monsters there, but compared with the former Lord Han Huizi and Zhang Li Huangtong of Taihui Jianzong, and the female sword fairy Li of the Duckweed Sword Lake. Just picking it, Lu Xie, the Yuaning realm sword repairman, seemed relatively inconspicuous. In the last battle out of the city in a foreign land, Lu Xie fought side by side with Xie Ji, a sword immortal of Fuyaozhou who was born in Shanzaixiu. The two sword repairmen, who are also outsiders from the Great Wall of Sword Qi, died in their lives. The older and the higher level handed out the last sword, both to kill the demon, and to clear the way for the young sword repairer. Probably the only time in his life that Lu Xun was famous was when he had an accident-free sign on the small liquor store. He claimed to be drinking under the moon, and he was full of creativity and poetry, leaving behind the widely circulated phrase in the world, "Half of the sword fairy is my friend. Which lady in the world is not shy? I wash my sword with alcohol, and no one will say that I am romantic." But in fact, in Luomahe, Lu Xie and his father, as well as the grandfather who is the current patriarch of the Lu family, are all well-known local riches and old hats, and they are not in touch with romantic talents. As a result, when the discussion at the Confucian temple was over, the entire Beiju Luzhou knew about Lu Xie's innocent card. In recent years, the people who have been to Mule Mahe to propose marriages have been in an endless stream. They almost broke the threshold. Everyone in Liu's hometown congratulations from the Lord, saying that you can be considered as a smoke from your ancestor's grave, and you actually gave birth to such a talented man. The old patron didn't know whether to cheat or explain a few words, anyway it was quite embarrassing. After Lu Xie returned to Luzhou and Beiju, he took the initiative to find Lu Jinglong twice. They both rushed to stay drunk and did not return. Jianxia said that he didn't drink it this time before going down the mountain. Come again. Life is inconsistent. If the wine has been around for 3 rounds, but it seems that it hasn't been drunk, it will begin to think about the next wine. Miyu was once curious about why the hidden officer never looked for Luomahe to do business. After all, Lu Xie was the old patron of the wine shop and the grandson of the Lu family. The business of Luopa Mountain has always stopped in the middle of Luzhou and Beiju, and there is no business partner in the north. Later, I realized that I didn't want to make it difficult for Lu Xie to be a man. The great sword immortal Bai Chang had a lot of prestige in the north, and Luomahe was accustomed to the landscape in the north. Lu Jinglong said for no reason. When Bai Shou just went up the mountain, he also asked me why there is only sword repair in the world, no sword repair or axe repair. Miyu was stunned, laughed dumbfounded, shook his head, took a sip from the wine bowl. I really never thought about this problem. Lu Jinglong smiled and stretched out his hand. Borrow brother Miss sword to use. Miya's natal flying sword is named Xiamantian. These years he has a sword-raising gourd named Hao Liang attached to his waist. It is the relic of his brother Mihu. It was originally given to the hermit. The hermit did not want it. Instead, he gave it to Miyu, and the high-ranking saber with the inscription "Sweeping" was given to Miyu by his elder brother in his early years. Miyu handed the sword to Lu Jinglong. Lu Jinglong held the scabbard and slowly drew the sword out of it. The sword light was as bright as Xiaohong, and the room was suddenly bright as day. Lu Jinglong put his fingers together and gently wiped the sword body, then raised his fingers and knocked the sword body. The brilliance was like water lines. In ancient times, magic tricks fell like rain on the world, on the earth, and spiritual beings, regardless of their origins, have their own chances, and those who have attained Taoism have sprung up like bamboo shoots after a rain. Lu Jinglong swept slowly with a sword, and a layer of sword light on the tabletop was condensed, like separating the world from the earth. The next moment, Miyu looked around as if he was in an ancient realm of emptiness. The dazzling stars that originally needed to look up were gradually becoming smaller as mustard seeds, as if you could just stretch out your hand and hold it in your hand. Lei Fa, the 5 elements, 72 talismans, the scholars of 100 schools of knowledge, refine the sun and worship the moon, attract the stars, look down on the public energy. Following Lu Jinglong's mouth xianxia from the opposite side, on the earth, spread out by the sword of light, many magical and magical powers were emitted throughout his life. And the first sword between heaven and earth is itself a manifestation of a great avenue. It is sharp and symmetrical. Lu Jinglong stood up, stretched out a hand, condensed a grain of light from the tip of his finger, and swiped it down gently, and a sword light fell straight down. The sword light broke through the earth and went straight to the endless void. There was no distinction between up and down, left, right, front and back. An earth was completely shattered, and thousands of magic powers were completely annihilated. Together with the sun, moon and stars in the sky, they were all given by a huge vortex created by the sword light. Tyrion, there is no more brilliance, it seems to be some kind of road unity. Lu Jinglong said indifferently, this is one sword to break the 10,000 magic. Miyu stared at the magnificent scene of heaven and earth from birth to death. After a while Miyu said solemnly, the road is already there, I want to retreat. Sword of Coming Chapter 919. The sky curtain in the central area of the colorful world. 2 sword lights rose from the ground in Fei Xingcheng and rushed straight into the sky. Between the sky and the earth, Those high and low seas of clouds were stirred by the sword chi, creating huge vortices. The bright sword light that pulled out an arc-shaped trajectory between the clouds and soil, came to the height of the sky curtain gate, but still tens of thousands of miles away, the sword light suddenly hovered, and two bodies appeared in an instant. Shaped, with a hosta on the head, a long green coat, a yellow hat and blue shoes and a trekking stick in hand. Each of the two sword repairmen turned into a dozen sword lights, and they swept toward the gate with exactly the same escape method. The speed was so fast that it was better than Lu Xiaozhou. An old man with a clean-looking Confucian shirt stroked his beard and smiled. I have to admit that they only talk about the journey or their sword fairy is more chic. The sword light flashes, the wind is fast, the world is unrestrained, and it gives people a kind of unbridled look. That's so refreshing. Another old man nodded and said, I didn't have the qualifications to become a sword repairman, otherwise I might not be willing to work hard. These two Confucian temples are responsible for enshrining the sages in the colorful world under the sky. One is the first great wine ceremony of the Liji Academy, and the other founded the Heshang Academy. The two old men, each with a Confucian scholar with their own cultural background, are young gentlemen who need to stay together for 60 years. Now they are recording in detail the changes in time and the movement of the landscape in Jiazi. It was originally to prevent monks from the upper five realms from sneaking into a new world, especially to stare at the north-south gates connecting Tonggishao and Fuyaozhou, so as not to let the nascent soul monks and the golden-bodied warriors break the rules. In those few years, the two sages of the Confucian temple still unearthed a lot of lucky practitioners in martial arts, and now they are all in the small world of the two old masters, reading the sages and sages in the cold window. When they saw the young hermit who had revisited and returned here, the two old men both smiled a little. Earlier, Qin Pingan passed through the canopy gate of Tonggishao and came to wuxialover. The closed disciple of Wensheng's line was hurried and hurrying. The two sides did not have too much politeness at the time. As for the weird rebel next to the young hermit, who changed his body shape, a snow-white spider was lying on the shoulders of Qingshan, and the Confucian temple who was in charge of taking care of Tonggishao to accompany the saints, had already passed their anger with them early, so they all turned aside. I closed one eye. Qin Pinggan's senior brother Mao Xiaodong is now the director of the Book of Rites Academy, and now the gentleman Wang Zai, who is the deputy head of Wuxia Academy of Tonggishao. His teacher is the contemporary great wine of the Book of Rites Academy. Wang Zai once came after passing this canopy on the side of the old man. In words, he made no secret of his recognition and admiration for the young hidden official. The Heshang Academy and the Shanlu Academy in Nanbasuazhou are the pillars of the sub-sage line. The old man and Qin Shunan are both scholars of the same context, and they are close friends. In the early years, Qin Pingan used to bring the great sword immortal Lu Ji. Teamed up with Qin Shunan, an ethical scholar, to encircle a deeply hidden ascendant demon at sea. Qin Shunan once found an old man in private and said that he never thought that he could do it again, but he had a big wish. With this level of relationship, the two sages who have not actually dealt with Qin Pingan will naturally become close in their hearts. Near the gate, Xiao Mo once again transformed into a snow-white spider, staying on his shoulder. Scholars want face. Qin Pingan and the two old men made courtesy salutes, and the two sages who accompany the Confucian temple also made courtesy salutes. One is a disciple of Wensheng, and the other is the last hermit who honors the Great Wall of Jianqi. The two parties talked about the recent landscape of the colorful world. Qin Pingan planned to leave and return to Tonggishao through the gate. A gentleman with Hao Ran Qi hanging from his waist, Yufeng rushed over and said with a smile, "Why is Ning Jianxian not with him? Isn't it a quarrel?" Qin Pingan said helplessly, "Brother Xuanhu is really free. It can be seen that the relationship between the two parties is good, and it is the kind that can make jokes with each other. This upright gentleman is named Gu Kuang, and his character is Xuanhu." The same Confucian scholar had been to the Great Wall of Jianqi, but he was not the same as Wang Zai, who only served as a war officer at the Summer Palace. Because Gu Kuang was not only a Confucian disciple, but also a swordsman, he was able to fight. "Enemy, I know Ning Yao and Qin Sancho very well. They have been out of the city many times to fight and fight side by side." Those Dali who was thrown into the Great Wall of Jianqi by Aliang imitated the long sword of Bai Yujing. Gu Kuang was assigned to this long sword named Hao Ranqi by virtue of his ability. Dai Zhang and Qin Sancho chose to travel through the vast world together. They did not follow Feixiancheng to Wuxi world, nor did they follow the Dangshan mountain to the Qingming world like Fatty Yan and Dong Huafu. Qin Shi hopes that Qin Sancho can be in the world. Studying with peace of mind, with the magical powers of Qin Sanqia's flying sword, maybe in the future he can develop a natal character. Andai Zhang came rushing to Gu Kuang, but because he did not expect that Gu Kuang would serve as the recorder of wuxia xianxia, the two sides have not been able to meet for so many years. Gu Kuang took off the Hao Ran Qi around his waist and asked, "Can you please give this sword to Feishing City?" Qin Pingan shook his head and said, "I'm not going to help run this leg. Brother Xuanyu should keep it for himself. How can the favor of Feishing Cheng be repaid so easily? As for the imitation by Yujing of the Dei court, it has been used now. There is no longer this Hao Ranqi long sword." Gu Kuang had to resuspend the long sword. If nothing happens after Gu Kuang leaves here, he will most likely serve as the deputy head of a certain college. At that time, Qin Xuanhuan led the team and led a group of Confucian students to the Great Wall of Jianghu. Among the Confucian children who traveled with Lu Xianying on the Great Wall of Sword Qi, there were Qin Shi, a wise man who was a son of the Qin clan of Confucianism, and Qin Jingxiu, a gentleman from Pasuoza Mountain Academy. Qin Jingxiu and Gu Kuang are close friends. Now the former is already in Fuyaozhou, similar to Wang Zai of Wuxia Academy and Wen Yu of Tianmu Academy. They have served as deputy heads of a Confucian academy. It can be seen that these young people, promising Confucian gentlemen, because of their respective brilliance in the war, all walked out of the study after the end of the war. With their military exploits and their own knowledge, they were able to occupy important positions and become the real backbone of the Confucian temple. After opening the door for Qin Pingan, an old master surnamed Jiang shook his sleeves, and a dozen or so people fell out of them. After standing still, they were all a little dizzy. They were detained in their sleeves for many years, each with their own landscapes. The dojo is similar to a study room. There is nothing but books in the room. They were all the people from Tonghishao who wanted to seek refuge in a brand new world. There were 3 nascent soul stage monks, 7 golden stage warriors, and 2 yuanyu stage grandmasters. The old master smiled and explained, "It is the meaning of the Saint of Rites and trouble the hermit to bring them back to their hometown." Qin Pingan nodded, "It's a trivial matter, it's not troublesome at all." On Qin Pingan's side there was a mellow look. When the old master looked at the 12 people who had violated the ban, he didn't have any good expressions. "In these years you have been studying behind closed doors and you have read a lot of sage books. It is a place for scholars. After returning home, behave well and make up for your failures. If it falls into my hands again, haha." Qin Pingan smiled and said, "In fact they can meet again with Master Jiang and it's also very good. Since they failed to live up to the crisis in King Shen's old age, then Hao Shou Qinjing is the only thing that has always been to invest in the military and abandon school to cultivate Taoism. There are few precedents for abandoning Taoism to study literature or abandoning martial arts to study scholarship. If they are made by them, it may be a good talk." Master Jiang laughed heartily, and our scholars speak nicely. At this point, everyone in Tong Yezhou saw one person. He was a young man with knives on his waist and sleeves in his hands. He was young and unidentified. This bunch of Tong Yezhou's uncles are used to being domineering and blessing behind closed doors. Even if the old master had just said the word hidden official, they were still at a loss. It's just that I can't figure it out anymore, and I can hear a little sign in the Hao Ran monk, "There is someone who can let the saint of ritual speak in person." If you heard it right, old Master Jiang had just used the term troublesome. I don't know which old deity is who has skill in beauty and mastery of profound art. Old Master Jiang looked at the group of silly geese and reminded, "If the hidden official just passed by here and he happened to be going to Tonghishao, someone would drop in on the way, or you would have to read 7 or 8 years of sage books. What are you doing in a daze? You can't say thanks to the hermit." Everyone immediately followed the instructions, but they looked at each other because they wanted to hold their fists or salute, but they couldn't lower their heads and bend their waists, and they were extremely embarrassed for a while. Qin Pingan looked at the clever people who were most able to judge the situation, and said with a smile, "Old gods and great masters don't need to be polite. If you don't dare to be or not, thank you and you will be forgiven for fear of losing your life." Another old master said, "Friend Shizhu may as well show up. This group of people want to pass through the 2 gates, but you still need to protect the way." Wait until Qin Pingan nodded. Only then did Xiao Mo recover his real body, and put the dozens of people in his sleeves. Then Qin Pingan took Xiaoma along the long river of colorful glaze and walked out of the gate at the Tonghishao sky screen. After the 2 sword repairers stepped into the gate, old Master Jiang sighed, "After the Wudong half dead and clear the frost, it's a mess, it's a mess." In addition, the saint sage remembered something and said in his heart, "About Tonghishao, Zhou Zi had a saying in his early years. What's the explanation? According to the current situation, it is Zhou Zi who is wrong?" Old Master Jiang shook his head and said, "It seems too early to say that Zhou Zi miscalculated. When the phoenix follows the sky and the breeze, the phoenix trees grow tall, the peach and plum spring breeze blooms, and when the phoenix dies and the autumn leaves fall, the simplicity conveys the truth, and then I see the early ancients." At the canopy of Tongyi's Hao, Qin Pingan asked Xiao Mo to take the dozens of people in his sleeves to other places, so as not to be eye-catching. As for how they return home from the wind and whether their hometowns are still there, I think this group of people will not be too much. Art. Qin Pingan and the old master asked again, "Can you help the younger generation find the trace of the wind kite fairy?" The old master nodded and quickly pointed out a place for Qin Pingan, which was the location of the Fengyuan ferry rushing to Xindu Mountain. When Xiao Mo returned, the two sides turned into sword lights, went to the ferry side and landed on the wind and kite ferry side. Xiao Mo was a little strange and whispered, "Master Mi Jianxian seems to be in retreat right now, Sect Master Lu himself. Protect the way for Mi Jianxian." Lu Jinglong walked out of the room and came to the viewing platform. Qin Pingan came to him and asked, "Has Mi Yu found the opportunity to break the bottleneck of the Jade Realm? This sword immortal Mi, as the handle of his summer residence, has a psychological shadow on the matter of retreating and breaking the border." Lu Jinglong nodded and said, "It's a matter of time and energy." Qin Pingan shook his head and smiled and said, "It is indeed a matter of time, but it is at least 10 years in the morning than Xiaomo's earliest expectation. Tell me the truth, did you help a lot?" Lu Jinglong didn't pretend to be hypocritical, so he roughly talked about the reason. He used his natal flying sword to create a world of emptiness. Put me you in it first and then draw me yes mind. This is equivalent to watching the roads and seeing the great roads of the day in Earth. Transformation will eventually be attributed to one sword breaking 10,000 laws. As for the real mystery here, it is by no means as simple as Lu Jinglong and Mi Yuyan say a few things. Mi Yu may have seen his life in that world. Why did he hand the sword sharply when he was young, and why he didn't dare to hand the sword afterwards, thinking about it? After the swords of others, thinking of the sword repairmen in their hometown, they lived and died vigorously, coming and going silently. Qin Pingan smiled and said, "When I look back when I am about to enter the Jade Pure Realm, will you also shook hands with me?" Lu Jinglong shook his head and said, "It's just that Mi Yu is useful to see it, but it's of no use to you. Besides, it's not that I want to evolve the avenue so I can do it casually." Qin Pingan patted the railing repeatedly, "I know. This move must have wiped out Qi Jinglong's long life." Lu Jinglong said, "You don't need to take it too seriously, I actually gained a lot from it. As far as the outside world is concerned, after watching the ceremonies of Xingyang Mountain on Luapa Mountain, the corner of Luapa Mountain, which has always been covered by clouds and mist, finally opened. Although the owner of the mountain, Qin Pingan, is also a sword repairman in the Jade Realm, he may still come from the Great Wall of Jianxi. Mi Yu, the sword fairy, has the highest swordsmanship and the most lethality. Once Mi Yu succeeded in entering the fairyland for the entire Aquarius Island, whether it was on the mountain or under the mountain, it was definitely not a trivial matter. After all, any brand new great sword immortal, with the exception of Middle-earth Divine Continent, has a huge impact on the existing pattern of any continent of mountains and rivers. Lu Jinglong suddenly smiled and said, "Anyway, I can help Luopashan and Xianxia a little favor and have some wine? It's okay to thank me or wish me you break the border in advance, and Xianxia seems to have there is no reason for rejection, right?" Qin Pingan immediately knew that he was wrong. Lu Jinglong made an exception and took the initiative to drink alcohol. He definitely came prepared and cut the line, "Don't worry, I still have something to do. I will stay here soon on the ferry and I will leave for another place soon." Lu Jinglong grabbed Qin Pingan by the arm, "It's just a few jars of wine each, depending on how much we drink, we can't delay business." Qin Pingan patted Lu Jinglong's arm. It didn't work and shook his arm vigorously. It still didn't work, so he said sincerely, "Something really happened. Xiao Mo had to help clear the siege and said, 'Sect Master Lu, the son really has a big thing to do. Xiao Mo can only follow, at most help clear the way, and then he can't protect the way anymore.'" Lu Jinglong let go and asked, "Where are we going?" Qin Pingan said, "Go and take a look at that sycamore tree." Lu Jinglong frowned slightly, waiting to return to the Jade Realm? Qin Pingan took a deep breath. "Anyway, the level of realm is of little significance, so I won't delay." Lu Jinglong had to remind, "Be careful." Qin Pingan smiled and said, "As long as it's not an enemy at someone's wine table, it's okay." Lu Jinglong wasn't in the mood to gag with this guy and asked, "In this way, will you be able to catch up with the day after tomorrow's celebration?" Qin Pingan nodded and said, "This is definitely okay. If you don't agree, you'll just run for nothing, or the other party doesn't want to talk at all, and you might just have a closed door." Lu Jinglong asked, "Leave right away?" Qin Pingan couldn't help but smile. "Go and see the millet grains first. Someone asks me to help me talk." Xiaomo, wait a moment. If Sect Master Lu really wants to drink, huh? Xiaomo nodded and said, "Understood." Lu Jinglong smiled and said, "On the day of the beginning of spring, Qin Pingan, wait for me." When Qin Pingan left Wuxia world, it was already dark. When he returned to Haoran world, it was midday. A little girl in black with a golden pole on her shoulders was circling around the bow and stern. While there was no one around, her right guard held a green bamboo stick, and quickly shook her hand with the crazy sword technique. Qin Pingan climbed over the railings and came to the deck of the ferry. He smiled and said, "Good swordsmanship." Millet hurriedly threw the trekking stick in his hand to the ground, and immediately felt that it was wrong and hurried to pick it up again. On the way to the good man Mountain Lord, the millet patted the green bamboo stick lightly and expressed apology. Qin Pingan said, "I went to Wuxia world and met Mr. Wu. He asked me to say hello to you." Xiaomi Li pursed his mouth, nodded vigorously, then coughed a few times and said with a straight face, "Mr. Wu is very polite." It was as if Mr. Wu was right by his side, and then the two old jianghu, one big and one small, met each other and exchanged polite greetings there. Qin Pingan bent down and touched the head of the millet grain. Millet's eyes narrowed into crescent moons with a smile, and he held both the green bamboo stick and the golden pole in his arms, holding the sleeve of the good man Mountain Master with one hand, walking together, and whispered, "I'm back in Luapa Mountain. Prepare more melon seeds, pastries and dried fish." Qin Pingan nodded and said, "You can have it, or millet grains are thoughtful." Millet asked, "Has the good guy forgotten?" Qin Pingan looked down, deliberately looking puzzled. "How do you tell?" Xiaomi Li laughed and said, "Thoughtful and thoughtful, my surname is Zhou Lu." Qin Pingan suddenly said, "So it's so, no wonder it's the case. There is no monk that Qin Lingjun dare not provoke in his own Luapa mountain. Of course there are no elders who can't hold the millet grains." On the side of Fei Xingcheng, Ningyao was sitting in a room, giving instructions to the little girl named Feng Yuanxiao to practice. Sitting by the table was a little girl who was carved in jade, who looked very strange and ingenious. She was holding up a seal in her hand and looking at the seal by the light. She picked it up from the table in the wing room of some guy's house, but Ningyao didn't stop him, just told her to remember to go back. The seal is not large, but there are many seals engraved with some good luck words. Book, business, chi, sword, fairy, romantic, fairy, family, love, love. Before Qin Pingan left Feishing City, he left many spring couplets and blessings to Ning Mansion. "I didn't forget to write a plaque and couples to the new wine shop of the husband and wife stall, Qiu Long and Lu Yi." A young man in white who wandered farther away, alone in the night to protect himself from the wind, and when he had nothing to do, he raised his arms high and put his fingers together, bringing out a series of ambiguous colors in the air. At the foot of Luapa Mountain, Xianhui, who is currently the janitor temporarily, is a fake Taoist and true scholar. Being poor is really poor. Because of Dafeng brother, who has never been masked but admired, he left the mountain of books. Therefore, I don't have time every day either watching the woman named Xin Yuanji walking back and forth along the mountain road stairs, or looking through the collections of Dafeng brother Dafeng's books. Between some pages, whenever there is that, ignore it, there will be a piece of paper between the paragraphs. It turned out to be the amazingly talented brother Dafeng. He picked up his pen and wrote down the wonderful content ranging from hundreds of words. My Dafeng brother is really a man. It's hot to see straight up people. A super master, my master. Chen Lingjun came to the foot of the mountain, watching brother Xianwei wrap himself up like a zongzi, shrank his hands and nest on a chair. Fortunately he was carrying a hand stove made by the old cook himself, but brother Xianwei was in a good mood recently. Every day is similar to making a fortune. Chen Lingjun sat on the bamboo chair beside him and smiled. Why is he a cultivator, so why can't he withstand the cold? Xianwei complained again and again. 5-level monks, it's even more difficult to survive the cold weather. Brother Lingjun, you don't know the suffering of the people too much. Chen Lingjun smiled and said nothing. In the past, in the waters of Huangting State's Yujiang River, I actually knew something about it. In those years, the brothers of the water gods of the Yujiang River spent a lot of incense in the Shui mansion and avoided several droughts and floods within their jurisdiction. Xianwei asked curiously, when will brother Dafeng come back? Chen Lingjun shook his head and said, it's hard to tell, let me ask the master later. I really miss the time Jing Dafeng watched the gate at Luapa Mountain. Life is helpless, men are talented and have no background, women have faces and no backs. Jing Dafeng said. I want to develop a way of thinking for the world's gifted and beautiful ladies. It was also said by the Dafeng brothers. On the Luapa Mountain, Zhu Lian, the chief steward, received 2 guests today: Wu Yuan, son-in-law of Yuan, son of Xiangzhu Kingdom, student of the national teacher Cui Huang, and now the governor of New Chuzhou. There is also Jing Quan, who left Beijing to become the prefect of Baoxi County. The old cook went to Househan again and gave some tips to the 2 Chao's children. Then Zhu Lian returned to Qianshan because there was someone knocking on the door. At Lianlo Fudi, it was Na Peixiang. Now that Zhang Li's life is not on the mountain, Zhu Lian will be responsible for this matter. After Zhu Lian opened the door, he smiled and asked, "What's the matter?" Peixiang's eyes were sad. The long eyes of this fox country master seemed to be asking, "In your eyes, what counts as something wrong? If nothing happens, I can't find you and I can't talk, right? The sadness is like a mountain, all on the brows, and the feelings are like water, all flowing into my heart." Zhu Lian smiled and passed the sleeve furnace in his hand. "It's okay to come out and relax." Going to the top of the mountain together, Pei Xiang talked about the current situation in the lotus root blessed land. Zhu Lian didn't say much, just listened patiently. When Pei Xiang had finished talking, Zhu Lian asked her about the current situation of the fox country. While chatting while walking, he reached the white jade railing on the top of the mountain. Zhu Lian leaned against the railing, looking into the distance. The mountain breeze was blowing, and he held the hair on the temple with his palm. Pei Xiang looked at Zhu Lian's profiled face and remembered a quote from the book for no reason. The carved columns and jade masonry should still be there, but Zhu Yangai. A young man named Shi Yuyin finally took a breath from his official duties. He sat by the river with chapped lips. He took out the hip flask and drank a sip of strong alcohol to refresh his mind. The hands full of frostbite accumulated in winter are about to be in the new year and have not healed. This year is doomed to not be able to return to Beijing for the new year, but I just mailed a letter to my family. The Dechong dynasty he was in was extremely upright in rejuvenation. His Majesty, who is in his prime of life, has worked hard in these years, and Dechong is not bad in terms of his reputation on the mountain or his national heritage. However, compared to the northern neighbors Ao Pingzhou, the so-called restoration of the Dechong dynasty in Tongyezhou is the most upright. Naturally, it is only compared with the countries in the continent, and it belongs to the short man to pull the general. Shi Yuyin recently recruited an old staff member who had reached his age. When Mr. Accountant, his surname was Zhang and Xia, the old man claimed to be from a vassal mountain in Xianxia to the north. Under his hand, he served as the last consecration and served as the accountant in the Huangshui mansion for many years. It was only because a small matter was improperly done, but the Huangshui king did not remember his old feelings. Dismissed, roll up and get fucked. Shi Yuyin turned his head and looked at the aides next to him and asked, "Old Zhang, you are on the mountain. Although your realm is not too high, you are still a Sevuing realm. By my side, what are you looking for?" After Lao Zhang got acquainted with himself before, he took the initiative to go to the door to post and chat with his father once. Otherwise he would risk having an extra trainer around him. How would he be relieved? Shi Yuyin's father, who was a book in the criminal department, worked a lot in private to find a few familiar masters to check the details of xianxia. That Xianxia in the former Tongyizhou, it may not be regarded as a first-class immortal palace, but now it is a big mountain top that can be counted, not to mention that there is still a big dragon Qiu in Zhongtu Shenzhou as a backer, and there is indeed an inconspicuous lake in that Xianxia's several vassal forces. In Shui Mansion there is a Mr. Accountant, named Xianxia, and he fits every aspect. And this immortal teacher on the mountain is indeed old-fashioned and has bizarre ideas. Shi Yuyin had a poor friend who was very talented before. He suffered from imperfect imperial examinations and was still unable to become famous. As soon as the old chapter came out, he was successful, and Shi Yuyin followed suit. Laosheng's plan was to find a few scholars and famous scholars in the literary world who are famous for their talks. In the land of Jianghu, in fact, they did not spend a lot of money, and they set up a noisy gathering of ants and noisy literati. Yaji, I hired a few more daycares pretending to be a vassal merchant, each had a feast on the road, and then asked a friend to pretend to be a beggar in ragged clothes, holding a broken bowl with a wooden stick, chanting love poems, and begging for wine all the way. When drinking, some merchants embarrassed the beggar and wrote the title, Xuanhuan, Green 10, and Push Grip, so that the other party had to sing and sing separately before drinking. The beggar laughed, "Who knows the pine, bamboo and rabbit?" and then composing a poem one step at a time, he immediately won the applause of the whole house. and went through all the way to the pavilion where the writer is, and even an impromptu poem which surprised 4 people. After drinking, he drove away and waited until someone in the pavilion exclaimed his name. Everyone knows this person's surname is very famous, and they regard him as a banned immortal, and he will be called to the court and the opposition overnight. Afterwards, Shi Yuyan asked Lao Zhang how he came up with this method. The old staff said that he was just borrowing from the ancient books, ancient people and ancient things. Lao Zhang also sighed at the time. The man in the book was really talented, not so by tricks. If this matter is still a retreat, another pragmatic thing really made Shi Yuyan admire Lao Zhang. It turned out that he was a half-life guy who had a relationship with Shi Yuyan, and he was doing business in partnership with a good friend of Shi Yuyan. After working for several years because he took over the business of civil engineering in many places, that friend did seem to have made a lot of money. Back then he wanted to recruit Shi Yuyan to join the team, but Shi Yuyan was concerned about making money. I was not interested when I was young and declined, especially after I became an official of the Ministry of Industry. It was even more impossible. After Lao Zhang heard about the incident, he immediately asked Shi Yuyan to remind the friend. Shi Yuyan was skeptical, but he persuaded the friend twice, but the other party did not listen. As a result, the friend is really burnt because of all the books. The money from the outside was taken away in just half a month, leaving only an empty shell and mess for a friend, borrowing money everywhere, tearing down the east wall to make up the west wall, but it still didn't help. And this old man, named xianxia, is naturally xianxia's chief guest, Zhang Luzhu. It's just that one is old and the other is young, one is neither like a yuaning old god, and the other is not like a minister of the Ministry of Engineering. From the capital to the place, it's good to say that the food and entertainment at the stations along the way is just as official. It's just that when you arrive at the new location of the accompany capital, it's really a banquet. The one who really took care of things was the right servant Lang Shi Yuyan. The reconstruction of local towns and the Wenwu Temple and Qinghuang Temple, the renovation of the temples and temples of the gods of mountains and rivers, and the renovation of the royal and official temples in the mountains. As long as you want to do something, it's like there is no end to it. The Minister of Engineering who came out of the matter. Some people who originally wanted to take the opportunity to make a fortune in justification, actually encountered such a knowledgeable minister of the Ministry of Industry, but also had a headache. He was not young and the door was clear. The young servant went south and many places were modified early. The account books are gone, and the one who asked the court for 10,000 taels of silver has now been actively reduced to 7 or 8,000 taels, and a mountain shrine and temple is directly halved. And all this of course is attributed to the old staff around Shi Yuyan, otherwise, where does Shi Yuyan know the quality and price of the wood on the mountain? However, some of the plaques and couplets that do not cost money are the young servants who used their own family incense, and they were also secretly raised by the old staff. They said that cutting people's money is a big taboo, and they must be compensated by 1 or 2. Show does not hinder the human relationship, not to mention that in the officialdom, it is often more effective to give face than to give money. Shi Yuyan even privately asked his father for help in one of the golden books in Hebo Mansion. Only then was Lao Shangshu Chiki and a gentleman from the Dafu Academy asked for a pair of calligraphy. The mansion is also the only one who does not cry poor with the Ministry of Industry and ask for money from the Ministry of Households. Therefore now this little uncle, he who is known for his stinky temper and clear stream, he said that the teacher and minister is an upright official and a capable minister. I greatly admire this servant, and the country must be prosperous. At Luojing Lantern Riddle Museum, Zhang Luzhu and Daiyuan, 2 good brothers who share adversity, first went back to each house and then began to make their own plans. As the chief worshipper Zhang Luzhu first returned to Xianxia, made some arrangements and soon set off for the Dechong dynasty, and finally found the young man named Shi Yuyan, using a pseudonym and a fake identity, given to this young and highly powered servant of the Ministry of Industry. He happily acted as the advisor. The name of Lord Shirlang is pretty good, he is loyal and speaks art and eloquence. The Shangshu of the criminal ministry is a typical latecomer. Naturally he spoils this lone seedling. It is impossible for him to give birth to a dutiful son under a stick. Moreover, although Shi Yuyan is unruly if you put aside that ridiculous thing, he is indeed a top-notch talent among the officials and eunuchs. He is a jinsher in the examination for his true ability and a true emperor's disciple. Zhang Luzhu smiled and replied, "Of course I have taken a fancy to Lord Shirlang's promising future, which is limitless." Shi Yuyan smiled and said, "Lao Zhang, do you have any sincerity when you say this? Do you believe it or not?" Zhang Luzhu categorically said, "Of course I believe it. The young attendant smiled angrily. I am too entertaining. Zhang Luzhu shook his head. As an advisor to this young servant, the old Yuanying was not aggrieved at all, let alone a general. On the one hand he coveted the vacant national teacher, and on the other hand, Dai Yuan did indeed return to the prodigal son. Lang temperament after all. Yuyan, this guy, when he was a small member of the household department, he dared to misappropriate 3 million taels of silver. For a certain fairy he ranked higher on the rouge list. The flower god mountain, which was thrown to the blessed land of the cloud grottos, almost lost his head, causing his father to wipe his butt, smash the pot and sell iron, borrow money from various places, and fail to make up all the arrears. If it weren't for the emperor, it would be for the merits of Lao Xianxia's hard work. The old man is also a first-class confidant to help the dragon, and he is capable of governing. He is definitely not the kind of civil servants who can only stand idle and talk about it. The turning point of the matter was because Yuyan could not stand the size of his father, and did not beat or scold him as if his heart was ashamed, and he was treated as if he had never given birth to his son. From time to time, my mother would deliberately wash her face with tears on Dad's side, and she kept saying that she blamed her lax discipline. In fact, Yuyan is not bad and she will definitely reform and rehabilitate in the future. It is a glorious lintel of a family of 2 scholars. With our son we can count on 1 or 2. Only in the capital, because of the lack of so many official posts in these years, the good and the bad are uneven. The sons and grandchildren of my colleagues are from the Qinglu who passed the qualification examination of the 2nd grade jianxia as we did in Yuyan. I'm afraid your father is still in front of the xianxia of the Ministry of Criminal Justice. He is the confidant of today's son. Anyone without the imperial court will succeed. Without your father it will be impossible. The imperial court and your majesty said a few hard words with a loud voice. Otherwise, look at Lu Xianxu from the Ministry of Rights and Ma Xianxu from the Ministry of Households. Are they all right? I don't dare to fart. Just remember, these words are the whispers of our mothers. Don't tell them or your father will be difficult to be a man. Yuyan really couldn't stand the atmosphere at that time. Dad didn't like him and his mother always regarded himself as a child. The young man was angry, so he went out and traveled. As a result, I met a confidant surnamed Zhou who seemed to be from Aquarius, who claimed to be a true monarch, and left a sincere message to Yuyan. Yuyan felt that he had not met in his life. I have been to such a friend and there are 3 other immortal coins. After returning to the capital, Yuyan knew that it was Guyu Qian on the mountain, so he immediately made up for all the shortfalls in the household treasury. After that, it was Yuyan who returned to officialdom, but he did not return to the Ministry of Households as an errand, but unexpectedly went to the Ministry of Industry or became a foreigner. In the capital officialdom, I thought this guy was about to start making some money. Yuyan actually stayed in the archives of the Ministry of Industry all day long, delving into those rather boring civil engineering works and creating paradigms. After a full half a year, he took the initiative to take on a drudgery. I paid my own pockets, asked friends to help find someone, and took a few old water craftsmen and craftsmen who were temporarily at home, and they went out together. Just like the brother Zhou said, there is no reason to be a dude who can be a good boy. It's not a good official who is the best in the world. It turned out to be good. When I was the leader of the gangster and the unfilial son in the capital, my father was at best to teach a few words and teach some officialdom. His hands and feet were full of calluses, but on his father's side, he was still not getting better, and he went back to Beijing several times to report on his work, one by one. But it's much better now. Every time he waited until the young servant left Beijing, Lao Xianxu reminded his son not to forget to eat and wear warmth, tossing over and over again. That's what he said. Yuyan shook his head. Don't be stupid, I know the rules of the mountains, you gods who are soaring in the clouds. Even if you go down the mountain and step into the red cave of right and wrong, the so-called experience is nothing more than what a strange book says. So the first choice is to be like the Jitsue temple of the Yu dynasty. As a real protector of the country, as a prince of feathers, his status is indescribable. The benefits are naturally inexhaustible. The second class is to serve as an insider offering to the imperial court, similar to the innocence card issued by the Ministry of Punishment in the hands of the Song clan in Dei Song on the Aquarius Island in the north. One more time, it is to be a family official like the chief official of a state or the governor of the water transport, and there are many benefits to be gained if the sky is high and the emperor is far away. If it is given to the Beijing official, even if it is a 6-part chief official like my father, it will be at the feet of the emperor. At best, it will be a real cleansing guest, but at any rate there will be a bit of glory in the face and occasionally you may be able to help. Speaking of it, The last one is to take refuge in those wealthy families who have their own wealth. Find me, I am a minister of the Ministry of Industry who has no money to make money. Lao Zhang, you can tell yourself, what's the matter? Of course I want to talk about promotion, but if you want to talk about getting rich, it will be avoided. Old Zhang, if you don't tell the truth today, I dare not keep you by your side. The old staff sighed. Now that the matter is up, I won't continue to hide the old chapter. Actually, I am the friend on the mountain who collapsed the true monarch. His surname is Zhou and his name is Thin. He is the chief consecration of a small. How did Qiu's outer genealogy monk serve as a guest of Aquarius Island's immortal mansion? There are some twists and turns here. When I was young, I was a free and happy mountain repairman. Dragon City, Divine God Sect, Yunxia Mountain have all been there, and I met Brother Zhou. Although I was only in the Dongfu realm at the time, the monk Tongyi's Hao at that time was in Beipingzu. Hee, very beautiful. Yes, you can be treated as a monk in the Dragon Gate realm. After you separated from you, Zhou Dao, you traveled to the blessed land of the Cloud Caves, and when he returned to his hometown from the north, he specially went to Shui mansion to look for me, and persuaded me to move the dead and live. I'm not being treated in that Shui mansion. I feel sullen every day. It's better to come to you and say that the Dechong dynasty has met a young man named Shi Yuyan who has great ambitions and will become a book in the future. If I manage well in Dechong Jingqing, I will treat it as an old age pension. Shi Yuyan was stunned for a while, and it was really twists and turns, and it was no coincidence that a book was made. Regarding Zhou Shou, whose Taoist name broke the true monarch, Shi Yuyan had only mentioned it on his father's side these years. My father only said that this person would definitely not be a half-hearted middle 5-level gas trainer. Is it true that the people of Aquarius Chao have both said that it is very likely that he is an expert from outside the world, maybe even a gold medalist? Dawn Land Fairy. And my father didn't know where to get a gossip, saying that somewhere in this continent, there was an immortal master on the mountain whose Dao name had collapsed the true monarch, and he was lavish. In addition to this famous Dao name, he also liked to call himself Longzhou, Jiangxianxian. However, there seems to be a Longzhou in the north of Aquarius Island. Shi Yuyan was puzzled at the time. Daddy, you are the Shangshu of the criminal ministry. Where did you know these messy mountain anecdotes? Lao Shangshu said that there is an old fairy teacher in the criminal ministry who has been a friend for many years. He is from Qi Mountain. Regardless of the matter, the old ancestor of the Golden Core and the old monk did not deal with the old sect master Jiang of Yuguizang. Every time he received the royal salary, he couldn't beat him. He hurried to the mirror to spend money and yelled at the old thief Jiang. When Lao Shangshu heard about this, he was shocked. In public and private, he had to persuade the few mountain friends to be careful to be found by sect master Jiang, with your little Jin Danxiu. For Qi Mountain still has to go around without eating, and it will also hurt our court to follow the food and hang out. However, the old friend waved his hand and vowed to say that the old thief Jiang, who is a sexy, would only look at the scenery under a woman's dress in his life. They also said that their gang, although their level of cultivation is not high, but it is a good hand to criticize Jiangze, so it is ranked third, except for the leader, second only to the rich and powerful. The true monarch collapsed. Even Beng Jinjuan admired him, saying that he was a pure and innocent person, and Beng Jinjuan also said that if he hadn't relied on a few bad money, he said with conscience, you should be the second master. Hearing what true monarch Beng had said, the old immortal master immediately felt comfortable, second or third, arguing for the fame and fame. Anyway, everyone was scolding Jiang Shangzhen based on his ability. Shi Yuyan is not interested in those gods and weird things, the grievances on the mountain, but on the side of Xianxia where Lao Zhang was before, there is a young girl fairy named Linghu Banana. Shi Yuyan knows her. It's a lot of money, nothing can be done. It's this little girl who competes with the fairy that she likes for the place. Nowadays, Shi Yuyan actually has no idea about Huaiyue Place in Yingyan Jianyan. Occasionally in the capital, when invited by friends, he will also go to drink a few flower wines just to hold a show. The young attendant, who has been in a high position in the temple, has only one impression now, probably in 3 words. Too young. There was a small boat docking in the distance on the river, and there was a boatwoman. She straightened her waist and raised her hand in a bun. Shi Yuyan couldn't see her face clearly, but it didn't hurt, that curvy, very seductive. Retracting their gazes, the old fairy teacher and the young official looked at each other and smiled. Shi Yuyan sighed for no reason. Follow me along the way, you can see it, Lao Zhang. You are elegant and elegant, vulgar and vulgar. You can eat bitterness and you can enjoy happiness. If the gods on the mountain are like you, it is true. I'm extremely envious. Maybe someday I will be uncomfortable as an official, and I will follow you into the mountain to practice the Taoism. Then don't despise me for my poor qualifications. Zhang Luzhu smiled and shook his head and said, there was a Shi Yuyin who was an official in the Dachong dynasty, and he would be much better than Shi Yuyin who practiced on the mountain. Shi Yuyin turned his head and asked, so confident in me? Zhang Luzhu nodded and said, of course I have confidence, and I have confidence in my own vision and that of brother Zhou. His mother, Zhang Luzhu, is now chewing out some aftertaste. What Zhou Shou, what Zhou Fei, it is clearly Jiang Shangzhen who appeared at the gate of Taiping Mountain with Qingshan Sword Immortal. As for the guy from Xindu Mountain who calls himself Cui Dongshan, he obviously threw himself to Shi Yuyin's side deliberately. At this moment I don't know where to hide, waiting to see the joke. This is a real pastime for me too much. As a result, Zhang Luzhu immediately slapped the back of his head, and then was strangled by the old Yuanying's neck by a fascinating young man in white. Frankly explain, are you talking ill of me in your heart? Shi Yuyin turned his head and said in a daze, this is? The white-clothed boy smiled and said, my surname is Cui. I am now a direct disciple of Pushen Yunkatang. I went down the mountain to experience. I just wandered here to meet my old friends. Of course, Chief Zhou and I worship brothers. Zhongtu Shenzhou Daong Dynasty, Jianghu Pavilion. There is a small lake near the water, the lake is clear, and the fish swims under the water and there are countless glimpses. This place is forbidden by the ancestors, and even the ancestral biography of the ancestor hall cannot be approached here. The fairy Xianxia, wearing a snow-white robe, is looking through two old mansion newspapers. The direct disciple Li Qingzhu used to change his way to find excuses to travel. Because he earned the reputation of Li Shui Piao, at Yuanyangzu, it is estimated that in Jiazi, he is not willing to go out and show his face. A young woman came slowly, her face seemed weak at 20 and strong at 15. She did not apply powder, her face was like a peach blossom, and she was radiant in a white silk green dress. Her name is Wei Zi, she is the Taoist companion on the mountain in Yunyao, and she is also an immortal. Yunya put down the Shanshui Dibao, raised his head and asked, how is the progress? There are some things that are a little bit dull. For the sake of caution, neither of the Taoist couples used the flying sword to spread the letter. Wei Zi smiled, it's very smooth. If it weren't for the rules of the Confucian temple, it would not be difficult to turn our Lord of the Master into a puppet. Just say that it is a closed mountain, and it must be unconscious. The ancestors of the Jianghu are wide, and the inherited Dao lineages are extremely impressive. Filu School, Danding School, Green Zhang Baogua, Dragon Vessel Fakyu, Soldier Monk, Pure Martial Artist and even Sword Repair, all have their own Dao lineage from generation to generation. Passed down, and this Taoist companion in Yunbio has a great opportunity to have a small broken cave sky with strong suffocation, which is the treasure of feng shui that the ghosts of the world dream of, and she does rely on several ancient magic methods in the secret realm. Back then, from a golden core female cultivator who was originally a hopeless nascent soul, she turned to the ghost way to practice, and she has since broken through smoothly, like a broken bamboo. Yun Xiao stared at her and reminded, never do this. She stretched her waist. Save and save. The term shunned is the dialect of her hometown. The sect where Nan Guangguang is located, most of the background is on the ancestor of the ascending realm. The realm, heaven and earth treasures and immortal money are all like this. Among the many legends, it was clear that there was no shortage of disciples with good qualifications, but in the end, Nan Guangguang only supported a Jade Pure Realm monk to be the puppet master of the embroidered pillow. Even so, Nan Guangzhao died and died extremely unexpectedly. In addition to the Nan Guangguang who separated the corpse at the gate of the mountain, there is also a line of sword awe-inspiring engravings, the handblade Nan Guangzhao, the spiritual and blessed land, the sword repair Hao Su. At that time, almost the entire Haoran world didn't know who this person was, and how could he slash an ascending realm great monk? Where did an ascension realm sword repairer pop out from? Why are you so unknown? To know that in that fight an old ascended cultivator died, and even the Zongmen had no time to stop it, and a catch-and fight had already come to an end. And when the ancestor Nan Guangzhao walked like this, it was not only a matter of death and disappearance, but the few things on his body were all destroyed by Jingguang. This means that most of Zongmen's possessions are lost at least at once. Zongmen treasury, no matter how tightly guarded, how can an old ascended monk carry it with him and come safely? The old ancestor Shi Nan Guangzhao was unpopular. Those old primordial infants who had no cultivating qualifications but had stagnated realm were full of complaints. So when Nan Guangzhao died and disappeared, a sect, the heart of the people was lost. Those worships, Kuching, passed the letter through Feijin a long time ago, and cleared the relationship with the sect. Even some of the direct disciples of the Patriarch's Hall were scattered and left to find another job. Anyway, it used to be Nangguang who had money and didn't give it to others, but now Zongmin really has no money. Therefore, when the immortal Yunya takes action, it is nominally to conclude a covenant. In fact, a sect is equivalent to becoming a vassal mountain of the Jiuzhen Immortal Hall. Of course, it's not that the Jade Pu realm is not afraid of introducing wolves into the room. It is really a helpless act of the two evils, whichever is the lesser. If you refuse the Jiuzhen Immortal Hall, your own sect will be completely destroyed. Even if the bones are hard enough to take 10,000 steps back as the sect master, he rejected Yunye's proposal. This is nothing. The lean camel is bigger than the horse, but the problem lies in the Yuaning realm brothers who are so angry. We have already begun secretly planning how to usurp the throne and divide the family property. She seemed to think of an interesting thing. She covered her mouth and laughed, her flowers trembling. She finally stopped her laughter, wiped the corners of her eyes with her fingers, and finally imitated the tone of the Jade Pu realm sovereign, and said something to the old monk. My heartfelt words when I was alone. The thing, except for Lao Tzu from the respected master to the same school, they are all a bunch of people from the upper beam to the lower beam. Yunya just laughed at the words. The preacher of Yunyao, the former owner of the Jianghu Hall, was once a friend of Nangguangwing on the mountain. The two old monks often traveled together before reaching the Ascendant Realm, and the two were almost inseparable. Because Yumbi's master was always more like a helper when he was in the same position as Nangguangzhao, so that on the top of the Middle-earth Mountain, there has always been a ridicule of Nangguangzhao's shadow. Now it is considered feng shui to turn around. There was no longer the white jade Ganoderma lucidum that Yunyi carried all the year round, so he replaced it with a snow-white whisk. The Taoist companion in front of him was once an unregistered disciple of the master. Yunqi was able to successfully take over the post of the master of the pavilion with the Jade Pu realm, and she was able to take a firm position. She secretly contributed a lot. Because she successfully entered the fairyland a few years ago, there is a 9 true immortal pavilion, a pair of Taoist couples and 2 immortals. The Daong Chui dynasty has had the custom of hairpins throughout the country since ancient times, and it has a very good relationship with Baiwafudi. Here is another news that only circulates on the top of the mountain. It is rumored that the founding emperor of the Yong dynasty once blocked a turmoil for Baiwafudi. Jiazeng Xianhuan sits firmly on the top of the mountain immortal mansion of the Daong dynasty, but unfortunately there is a Zhuolu Song family who is more powerful than the Jiazeng Xianhuan in the Daong dynasty. After the death of Master Yun Bei, Jiazeng Xianhuan gradually became a vassal of the Song family. Back then, when the 9-realm immortal hall was at its peak, the master, including the master, rose to the top, 1 immortal, 3 jade pu, plus 4 worshippers, Kuching, and 1 patriarch hall, and there were 9 monks in the upper 5 realms at the same time. In the Middle-earth Shenzhou, they are all well-deserved top sections. Every 10 years, the Song family of Zhuolu sends a group of children and family-born children to practice here. At that time, any ancestor of the patriarch hall of Jiazeng Xianhuan went to Baiwafudi, who was not a guest. Weizi asked, "Where is Meishan Jianzong?" Yunyao shook his head and said, "Don't think too much so as not to overdo it." The wish of Jinzong Meishan was the granddaughter of the Lord, or the closed disciple of an old ancestor. She was even more highly regarded by Liuzhou and Xianshan Mountain. Originally, Yunya planned to let Li Qingzhu and Xuxin wish to become a mountain Taoist couple. Marriage, striving for the sword sect of Meishan Mountain in the bag within 300 to 500 years, and now Yunqi has no such thoughts at all. Wei Zi glanced at the case and said with a smile, "Why don't you get bored while still reading these 2 mansion newspapers? These are 2 Shanshui de Beos from Shanhaizong." Yunmi smiled and said, "Forget it if outsiders don't know, why do you have to ask?" Wei Zi smiled and asked cautiously, "If someone is a guest at the Jianghu pavilion someday?" For some reason, when he thinks of this person, Wei Zi will have a lingering fear of being inexplicable. As a ghost cultivator in the fairyland, Wei Zi believes that even if he faces the great master of Longhushan, he will not be like this. In this weird state of mind, Wei Zi has not even spoken to Dao Lu Yunya, just like a dispensable nod. Yunya was silent. At the Battle of Yuanyangzu, the immortal Yunya and the unidentified young Jianxiu fought each other. At the beginning, everyone regarded it as a joke. When he knew that the sword fairy in Qingshan was actually the last generation of the Great Wall of Jianqi after the hermit, it was originally a big joke, but it turned out to be Jiuzhen Immortal Hall and Immortal Yunya. They made a feat that was not big or small, but it was a feat of a jade sword repairing a fairy. Of course, it can't be compared to the 2 rising battle between Taoist Nen and Nangguangzhao afterwards. It is not small because the sword immortal Xianxia is a hermit. But Yun Yi felt that the so-called mountain contest behind him was a world of difference compared to his own, and the level of danger in it was simply not qualified to compare with his own. Of course. When I was in Yuanyangzu, Yunya was like asking Mr. Zheng from Beidasheng. You guys who watch the excitement know what is shit. Yun Yi glanced at the D bow on the top of the case, which wrote a series of actions of the young hermit in the wild world. Mr. Zheng from Baidi City was indeed a 14th realm monk. I have a small regret. In this way, I believe that there are already some discerning people just like myself who know this without saying the truth. Otherwise, it's just a young hidden official who is a sword repairer in the Jade Pure realm, who can really toss about a series of shocking things in the wild world. Some secrets are like a book because they are too cherished and liked, but they are unwilling to lend them to others. If the young hidden official came to the Jianghu Hall, of course Yunli would be willing to cooperate with Zheng Zhuzhong to continue acting. Besides, is Mr. Zheng letting him Yunyu not want it? In contrast, Yunyi felt that the realms and minds of the two sides were too far apart. Beiju Luzhou, the boundary of the Sanlang Temple. In Luzhou, Beiju Sanlang Temple is as famous as Henjian Mountain. One is the largest weapons shop, only the futon made in the Sanlang Temple is secretly made. As for the Lingbao Jia, the only one in the world, it's not as famous as that of the soldier Jiahuan, but it's cheap and good in quality. Moreover, the military cultivators who are proficient in casting in the Sanlang Temple are notoriously not fond of fighting, and can fight. At the Xinjia ferry crossing, there was a tall middle-aged man. He walked alone on the bustling street after he was busy with his work. The man walked around 2 steps, wearing a thick cotton-padded jacket and an old mink hat, bowed his head and breathed, and finally came to an alley, a familiar small restaurant. Seeing that there was no free space inside, the man put his hands in his sleeves. Habitually bowed and waited in the alley outside the door. After finally waiting for a table to be vacant, a group of guests came to the door. The tall man wanted to speak but stopped, raised his hand just about to speak and quickly put it down again. Among the guests who made the first move, there was a guy who had crossed the threshold. And deliberately turned his head and looked at the man at the door. The tall man smiled, stretched out his hand and pressed the mink hat, not caring about anything. Of course it was more like not daring to care about it. After waiting at the door for a while, the man looked at the alleyway and waved and shouted, "Xiao Xian, this way." The teenager complained, "Uncle Lu, it's easy to find, how come I picked a fly restaurant that I don't know?" The young man called Xiao Xian by the man was wearing a clay gold robe, and the young man was surrounded by 2 obedient, clean-looking old men wearing a black robe. The old man saw the tall man at the entrance of the restaurant and smiled. Nodding in greetings, both sides are old acquaintances and both sides are sword repairers. The reason why he was able to take refuge in the Sanlang Temple was due to the secret recommendation of the other family. And the woman who was obedient, with a bow and saber, was in her 40s, but she looked young, and she was quite young for the wandering realm martial artist. The man walked forward quickly, smiled and clasped his fists and said, "Brother Lu, girl Fan." The old man nodded and smiled, "Brother Lu." The woman surnamed Fan immediately clasped her fists and said, "I have seen immortal Lu Jian." The man looked helpless and said, "Is it a curse? Just follow Xiao Xian and call Uncle Lu." The woman smiled, the other party was polite, of course she couldn't be so ignorant of etiquette. After all, this man who looked dumbfounded was a long-famous Yuanying realm sword repairman, and had been to the Great Wall of Jianxi, but unfortunately he failed to break through the realm there. The boy sighed, "Uncle Lu, I haven't seen him for many years." The man smiled and said, "They are all cultivators, less than 20 years, nothing." This Uncle Lu went to the Jianxi Great Wall very early when Yuan Shen was a child. The reason for the deep impression is of course that this elder from Luomahi is not like Jianxiu at all. It's not like a monk from Beiju Luzhou at all, and it's not like a rich man at all. There was an empty table in the small restaurant, and the man took the lead to walk in. The white-haired old shopkeeper was an ordinary man who had never practiced. Of course, he could not recognize a customer who had been to the restaurant once more than 20 years ago. Someone soon recognized the identity of the young man. The group of diners who had robbed the spot before discovered that the wretched diners could actually be at the same table with Yuan Xian. Without a word, they left their money and ran away. "I want to apologize if you don't hit me. Both of us just assumed that nothing happened, lest we make mistakes and be beaten." Yuan Xian asked with a smile, "Have a holiday?" The man shook his head and said, "It's nothing." Yuan Xian complained, "As soon as I go out, Grandpa is still talking about you, saying that you don't understand etiquette, so there is no reason to leave behind the gift." The Uncle Lu in front of him is Luomahi Liuxia, and Luomahi and Sanlang Temple are close friends on the mountain, and the relationship has always been very good. The old patriarchs on both sides were close friends when they were young. The man and Yuan Xian asked about the taste and if there are any taboos. Seeing that they are very casual, they ordered a few signature dishes and said with a smile, "Your family has many customers every day and I don't know if I meet those half-baked ones. What should I say? Grandpa Yuan knows my temper anyway." Yuan Xian smiled and said, "Uncle Lu, Qingshan Jiushui is too difficult to buy now." Lu Su nodded. The young man said, "He, it was hard to trust the relationship, and I found the supreme emperor of the Xuanmi dynasty, and only then bought 2 altars." The man smiled and said, "It's a good material for doing business. The expenses are recorded in the account and we can take it out now. We just drink it today." Yuan Xian said in surprise, "Is it right here to drink?" Lu Xia asked back, "If you don't pick people when you drink, don't you pick the ground? What's the reason?" Only then did Yuan Xian take out 2 jars of xianxia wine from the nearby objects. As expected, Lu Xia uncovered the mud seals and ordered 3 more wine bowls with the store associates and began to pour the 3 of them. For a while, the whole small restaurant was filled with the aroma of wine. The woman Takeo smiled knowingly. It seems to be different from outside rumors. Lu Sun once wielded the sword alone, traversing a dynasty and several vassal states, and demolished 7 or 8 patriarch halls along the way. Rumor has it that Lu Sun once held a sword in one hand and slapped the emperor on the cheek several times with the sword, telling him not to bully the honest person. Lu Su picked up the wine bowl and toasted a bowl of wine with the 3 of them first, but he still didn't forget to let Yuan Xian drink something before drinking. Yuan Xian didn't drink too much and didn't see Uncle Lu. He just took a sip of wine, then winked his eyes and said, "Uncle Lu, a real person doesn't show his face." Lu Su smiled bitterly. "Know what the other person is saying. That time I really drank too much." Although it was not a mistake that would become an eternal hate, but now in my hometown I am often laughed at. As for himself, who has always been drinking too much, he has to blame the second shopkeeper for his drunkenness. He said that he had traveled to Luzhou in North Ju, during which he encountered good things and bad things, but regarding the atmosphere on the mountain, looking at the entire awe-inspiring world. The second shopkeeper had bright eyes at the time and gave Lucia a thumbs up, saying it was this. At this moment Lucia was overwhelming, so he asked for an extra pot of wine, took the wine pot to the second shopkeeper's wine bowl, and lightly touched it, and it was done directly. After that, the second shopkeeper put his arms around his shoulders and said, "Brother Lu, would you like to give his brother a chance?" Lucia said that he didn't know this, but the second shopkeeper said that there was a ready-made one. Just copy it and he would always write well. At any rate, he was the young master of Luomahi. At that time I was dizzy after drinking, but Lucia agreed, and then he had the innocence card. The next day he woke up and went to the shop to check the contents. At that time he thought it was pretty good. Yuan Xian held the bowl in both hands and smiled brightly and said, "Is it necessary to wish Uncle Lu as the head of the family? Does your kid only open which pot and not lift which pot?" Lucia said in a huff, "If you drink yours, I won't drink this bowl of wine." Luomahi owns an intercontinental ferry to do business on Iazhou. After being requisitioned by the Confucian temple, he quickly bought another one. As a result, Luomahi took the initiative to hand it over to the Confucian temple. It is said that Lucia meant it. In the family ancestral hall, after arguing hard, there was an elder who said that Lucia is now the head of the family. In fact, the entire 16th house of Lucia Mahe is very clear about one thing. Lucia is not interested in the position of patriarch at a young age, and who does not want Lucia, who is the most convincing, to succeed the patriarch? Lucia guessed it was done at that time and he said on the spot, "Can you stop me as the master of the house?" As a result, the elder said directly, "Okay, that's it, I can't stop it and I won't stop it." Good guy, dare to love the entire ancestral hall, waiting for Lucia's words. In the words of the old patriarch, it is a good deal to trade a fairy for a patriarch. However, Lucia reached an agreement with his grandfather that he had to wait for himself to enter the Yupu realm before he came to abbot the family affairs. Of course, Sanlang Temple knew about this. The old patriarch of the Lu family had sent a letter from Feijian a long time ago, showing it off with an old friend. Lucia suddenly asked, "I heard that girl Fan has been to the southern battlefield." A female Wufu named Fan Yu, with a slightly guilty expression on her face, nodded and said, "I don't give much effort. It's like going through a cutscene. I will punish myself for a bowl." Lucia raised the wine bowl and said, "The same is true for me on the Great Wall of Jianghu. Then we will all go." Fan Yu once went to the battlefield of the companion capital in the middle of Aquarius Island by himself, and it was a far-reaching realm from the Golden Realm over there. It's just that she almost failed to return to her hometown alive. Once she was trapped in the battlefield and was covered in blood. She was quietly targeted by a mountain martial artist of the Wild Monster clan. When her life was hanging by a thread, Fan Yu was called by a name. Zheng Qian's female grandmaster was rescued. To be precise, it was the female grandmaster nicknamed Zheng Qingming, who grabbed his shoulders and threw Fan Yu out of the battlefield. Later she made a special trip to the door to thank her. At first, the senior was very polite, but she was only polite. Only after learning that Fan Yu came from Sanlang Temple in Luzhou, Beiju, especially after Fan Yu claimed to be the resigner of Yuan Xian at Sanlang Temple, she still remembered that scene clearly. Only Zheng Qian's eyes widened and his face was revealed. Unbelievable strange expression. It's just that Fan Yu didn't dare to ask much at the time. After all, the other party was not only his lifesaver, but also a great master who was able to question Chao Ci 4 times in succession. Yuan Xian put down the wine bowl and asked in a low voice, "Uncle Lu, are you very familiar with the hermit?" Lucia thought for a while and said, "Fortunately, it's slightly better than that kind of nodding acquaintance and it's not really a good friend. Lucia is neither short of money nor easy to gamble. The second shopkeeper sits in the farm a few times without getting mixed up. Besides, he is also a boring gourd. When he drinks at the wine shop he can't be a wine holder, even that one. With a small summer money and an altar of King Shinshen Joshue, you can't even think of paying for it yourself, and no one should learn from the Fengshua Temple Great Sword Fairy Wei in Jin Dynasty. What's more, Lu Sun has never paid attention to matters such as clothing, food, housing and transportation in addition to practicing swordsmanship in this life." However, Lucia said that he and Qin Pingan were just a bit better than the nodding acquaintance, and Lucia was humble. He couldn't be more serious. Every time Lucia went to the wine shop, as long as the second shopkeeper was present, he would take the initiative to invite Lucia to drink together. "Of course, every time I am very diligent, I will ask if I want to have a pot of King Shinshen wine. I finally kept it for you. If I don't drink it today, it will be bought by Wei De Jiangxian at the beginning of next month." Yuan Xian continued to ask, "I heard that his name is Qin Pingan from Aquarius?" The old man and the woman Wufu looked at each other. "Have you traveled to Luzhou, North Ju?" "I heard the second shopkeeper said about it." Yuan Xian quickly took a sip of his wine and was shocked. Because back then he, Grandpa Lu and Sister Fan, the three of them traveled through the Valley of Ghosts, and arrived at the bronze lake recorded in the Relaxed collection. Yuan Xian was rushing to the rare beetle called the fish scale at that time. It is golden with double wings and the sound is like a mandarin duck. It is said that monks can eat without being entangled by any nightmare, and a family elder of Yuan Xian just needs this thing. Yuan Xian was obsessed with fishing, otherwise he was young. There won't be the reputation of Yuan Ichi. Once you hit a nest, the water will rise by 1 foot. In the Sanlang Temple there is a sister who Yuan Xuanda called Grandma. She is successful in monasticism, has skill in her beauty, and has a beautiful appearance. She has passed through the mountains with Lu Sui and Sun Qing in the Kaik mansion. She still admires the peak master of the past year, Lu Jinglong. And these 3 fairies are among the top 10 fairies of Luzhou and Beiju. And the Sanlang Temple, who has been stuck in the nascent soul realm for many years, has been trapped by the nightmare, so that he dare not retreat and break the realm. How is Xuanhuan personal? Xiao Xian, what are you asking about? Just curiosity. Hearing this, Lucia narrowed his eyes, stretched out his hand to cover the white bowl with half a bowl of wine, and said solemnly, "Yuan Xian, either stop here or follow the words carefully." The old Jianxiu surnamed Lu and Fan Yu, who is a martial artist in the far travel realm, felt a sense of suffocation at the same time. The old man is also a sword repairman in the nascent soul realm, and in this realm he is more than that of Lucia, but until this moment the old Jianxiu had to admit that he is too far apart from the Mule Maha sword repair Lucia. Just as Fan Yu was about to explain to the young man, Lucia squinted, and Fan Yu had to shut up. Yuan Xian didn't care about the sudden tension and smiled, "Uncle Lu, you have to toast me a bowl of wine because I knew Qin Pingan earlier than you." The boy once met a young ranger wearing a hat. The opponent was a pure martial artist, but he was wearing a robe at the time. But it seems that he is also a sword repairman. When the 2 parties parted, the other party once said with a smile, "My name is Qin Pingan and I am from Aquarius." Sword of Coming Chapter 920. Qin Ping and accompanied Xiaomi Li to patrol the ferry, and 2 ferry stewards came to face each other. Dressed in a snow-white robe, she has a long life. Because she wants to participate in the next celebration, she temporarily serves as the chief steward of the wind and kite fairy over the sun. As a second hand on the ferry boat appointed by the young mountain owner, the old fairy Jia keeps himself clean from head to toe. He has a clean appearance, a beard and hair like snow. The old is considered to have moved out of the bottom of the box. Now he is wearing a robes, walking on a cloud shoe, and a small jade chime around his waist. This is a blind old Taoist who bought it from the Chaotu shop in Qilong Lane in his early years. My favorite spiritual tool, on the jade chime, the mound is simple, and the ancient seal is inscribed with a line of tiny characters. The wind blows the chime, I recite the yellow court, the golden sound and the jade vibrate, and the heavens respect each other. Standing next to Changming, Jia Sheng was a little behind, and he struck a door with Chen Pingan, and said respectfully, "See the Lord of the Mountain." As for the pair of lotus roots on the feet of the old god, they are one of the gifts given by Mr. Xiao Mo. Chen Pingan explained with a smile. I just took Xiao Mo and walked around the colorful world together before I came back. Jia Sheng said with regret, Miss Shanju didn't come back together? Chen Pingan nodded. She wants to retreat and can't get out of her body. Besides, with her current status, she is not suitable for frequent travel between the two worlds. The old sighed, the marriage is fixed by the sky and Yu Lao arranges it well. Even so, it is still a lot of gathering and separation. The mountain owner and his wife have worked hard. Chen Pingan just hummed, smiled and said nothing. Zhang Li Changming glanced at the young mountain lord and said empathetically, the son is in business? The two sides met for the first time in the prison of an old deaf child, and it was considered the dojo of the criminal officer Haosu. There are women in dressing clothes by the stream. At first glance they look like two beautiful Murano beauties. Time flies, the sun and the moon are like shuttles, unknowingly it has been for many years. At the beginning, the two young Jianxia who were thrown into prison by the eldest sword fairy had their own destiny. Du Shanin became the only direct disciple of Haosu, with a simple and gloomy temperament, and became the disciple of the old deaf child. As the incarnation of Guyu Qinzuqian, the girl finally left the Great Wall of Sword Qi with her master Haosu, under the pseudonym Ji Qing, followed Du Shanin, traveled through the vast world together, and once appeared in the night ship Appearance City. Back then, the white-haired boy once said the word current to help the hermit ancestors see their true faces, only to say that Jiqing, her skin at that time showed an ancient faint turquoise color, on her forehead just like opening a small skylight. It was the beginning of her birth of the world with this kind of money. Chen Pingan hesitated to speak but stopped. Longevity smiled and said, the sun is in urgent need of gold, fine copper and a thing? In the same language. Chen Pingan is no stranger to gold and copper coins. It can even be said that the young kiln workers in Nipping Lane had seen more gold and copper coins in the small town than the real gold and silver circulating in the market. In the past, as the passing money to enter the Lizhu cave, there were three types of gold, fine and copper money, namely the Spring Festival money, the support money and the victory money. The first three kinds of fan money coined by the invitation of the Mo family's great son, Chen Pingan guessed that it was mostly the handwriting of Mr. Far from being the Dali imperial court of one country and one continent, with the superficial background of the Song family back then. He couldn't ask Mo Jiajue to help make money. And these three kinds of money are the world's first-class finest gold and copper coins. It's only because the Song family of Dali was very strict at that time. Every bag of money is equivalent to the left hand and the right hand. This has not spread to other continents. After the Lizhu cave fell to the ground and took root in the earth, it was reduced from one of the 36 small caves to the rank of blessed land. Some three types of gold and copper coins secretly minted by the Dali court, the Song family treasury, began to gradually disperse quietly. Sound paid off part of the mountain debt. According to the white-haired boy, the money of the ancestors in the world is often in pairs. If they can manifest themselves and give birth to wisdom, they are the world's first-class immortal couple. Chen Pingan no longer kept hiding and said frankly, my destiny flying sword Jing Zhongyue, if you want to improve your rank, you have to refine a long river of time. On the side of Feishing City, Ningyao gave me a gift. Logically speaking, it is enough for me to create a long river of time, but this kind of sword refining is not the same as the general situation, it is a bottomless pit. Long Life smiled and softly asked, this is a matter of greatness. It can't be simpler and clear. Why should you be embarrassed? Is it only for the state officials to set fires and not the people to light the lights? Or is it that we only allow the mountain owners to set fire to the mountains? One person is diligent and conscientious, The swallow holds the mud and supplements the family. Don't allow others to do a little bit for the mountain lord? Qin Pingan choked for a while. In fact, the truth is not said so. If it is just a normal exchange of immortal money, Qin Pingan is of course not at all embarrassed. It is just gold, fine and bronze money, which involves long-lived Dao cultivation. Qin Pingan's cultivation of the moon in the sword well is the more the better. In fact, it will live longer. What's more, there is no other way to improve the realm, but to eat money and only eat gold, fine copper. A bit similar to the gods of mountains and rivers, they can only rely on the incense of the world to temper the golden body. Besides, all the Taoist magic methods in the world are vain. Changming smiled and asked, as the law of the Laupa mountain palm, does Changming rely on the realm? Chief Zhou is a sword repairer in the fairyland, Miyu is about to become a fairyland, and the Lord Shui is a fairy. Then how should I manage? Why not step down as the leader and hand over to the immortal Mi Dajian after breaking the realm? The words of the two sides of Luopashen Mountain Lord and Zhongli did not deliberately conceal them, and did not use their heartfelt words. Obviously they did not regard old God Jia as an outsider. Jia Xing listened to the side really but just listened to it and felt bad. The long-lived Taoist became angry. And the first time I was angry it turned out to be rushing to our mountain lord. It is indeed the law of the downfall of the mountain palm. Put yourself, how dare you? Chang Ming continued, the two unexpected gains before and after. If you don't follow the sun, or even if it is something close at hand, how can Chang Ming be in the bag? In the jail of the Great Wall of Sword Qi, after the hidden officer and the criminal officer had finalized the matter, he was given a long life with a new identity. He once used his own magical powers to turn the corpses of the gods scattered around the world into golden sand and pile them up into mountains, big and small. It is equivalent to a dragon cliff in Ningfu, and its scale is quite impressive. In the end, the remains of the gods were honed out of the golden sand by the long river of time, attached to the clothes of longevity, and condensed into a rare and valuable robe. Why does Chang Ming seem to be within easy reach of these close road opportunities, but in the long years she has never been involved in it? Of course she should not act like this, nor dare to do so, even if she was the maid of the criminal officer at the time. But if the boss Jianxian didn't acquiesce and the old deaf children didn't allow it, these private property belonging to the Great Wall of Jianxi, the criminal officer Haosu and Changxing, would not be taken away. According to the estimation of Huawei Tianma, that veritable golden mountain, resting in the Qingming world, can refine the pure golden bodies of 3 or 4 Jianghu Jingxin and Shanshanfu monarchs. The second time it was in Luapa Mountain where the mountain lord's senior brother Jun Qian once handed his fists with the cross-border remnant at the Sky Curtain in Aquarius Island, and it rained heavily in the Beiyue land boundary. At that time in the jail of the Great Wall of Jianxi, longevity was far closer to the young hermit than Jiqing. It was a kind of blessed soul that was in harmony with the Great Road. Qin Pingan had to say, then I won't be polite to you, and I will discuss specific matters when I return to Shindu Mountain. Seeing some doubts about Chang Ming, Qin Pingan explained, I will take Xiao to the far door soon. Millet has been standing quietly beside the good man mountain master. Qin Pingan touched the little girl's head and said with a smile, this trip is also due to the careless words of the right guardian. Beiju Luzhou, Sanlang Temple and alley restaurants. Just because Yuan Shenduo asked a few things about hermits, the atmosphere became dignified. Lucia still kept that palm covering the wine bowl and asked with a smile, is it old knowledge? How to say? Fan Yu asked, Grandpa Lu really don't need to inform Sanlang Temple over there? Yuan Ing Lao Jianxiu said in his heart, it's okay. It's not even a misunderstanding. Don't make a fuss. In fact, Lu has his own concerns. Don't mess with someone like Lucia. When talking well, everything is easy to discuss. When not talking, don't talk about Yuan Shen's grandfather. I am afraid that even the head of the Lu family of Mule Mahe will not be able to stop Lucia. Then don't be self-defeating, just wait and see the changes. However, it can be seen from the beginning to the end that Lucia, who only calls that person the second shopkeeper, and never calls hidden official, is not disrespectful to Qin Pingan. What is only slightly better than a nodding acquaintance? Who believes? Only Yuan Xian, still like a okay person, smiled and asked, Uncle Lu, I heard that Chen Yingguan is a sword repairman or a master of martial arts? According to the list that year, as one of the 10 young people in the world, the last hidden official of the Great Wall of Sword Qi is a sword repairer in the Yuaning realm and a martial artist in the mountain realm. Lu Sun moved his hand away, took a chopsticks with hot and sour Chinese cabbage and nodded, When I first arrived at the Great Wall of Jianghu, the second shopkeeper was actually not a sword repairman, but his boxing skills were indeed very high. I heard Huang Shou said, too. The shopkeeper traveled to the Great Wall of Sword Qi for the first time when he was young. It seemed that he had lost 3 games to Chao Ci. Later, when he returned to the Great Wall of Sword Qi, Chao Ci had already left the hut at the head of the city. I have witnessed the whole process in those 2 questions. Yuan Xian asked again, does Xuanhuan like to wear robes with a sword on his back? Lu Sun no longer drinks, just picks up vegetables, likes to chew slowly and slowly said, normally I don't wear a robe, but when I get to the battlefield I like to wear a few more. Many local sword repairmen of the Great Wall of Sword Qi, especially if you are the younger generation, you will learn the same way. If you don't think it's a shameful thing, it's important to save your life. Maybe you can earn a lot of military exploits. As for the second shopkeeper, he wears at most a few robes, which has always been a mystery. At that time, the second shopkeeper had already gone to the summer palace as a hermit, and couldn't ask him. The term Nan Shou Chen Bei Ying Guan is not widely spread now, and you will understand the meaning of this statement in the future. On the battlefield, I would rather meet Ning Yao than a hidden official. It's not a joke. In addition to the close disciple Liz Hen of the great ancestor of Tua Yueshan, there is also the fairy embryo of the sword in Jiashan. Suffering. And now that Jian Xiufiren, who is the savage co-master, has also secretly calculated the second shopkeeper. Doesn't seem to be the same? In my impression he is a very polite person. Is that the same name and surname? And I've also been to Luzhou and North Ju. Is there such a coincidence in the world? Lu Xie frowned slightly and said, Yuan Xian, can't you speak more easily? Yuan Xian laughed, and then he stopped going around in circles and talked to Lu Su about the details of his visit to the Ghost Mythical Valley. How did he meet the sword-backed ranger wearing a hat and a robe in the Tonglu Lake? I even invited the other party to go fishing together. I can see that the other party and myself, the Yuan Ichi, are genuine fellows. Yuan Xian wanted to go fishing on the trip. The silver carp planted on the mountain known as the Little Lake Dragon, grows 1 catty a year. After 100 years, 2 dragon whiskers will be born, which must grow 1 inch every 300 years. When it grows to 1 foot, the carp can walk away from the river. And the young ranger, who is both a pure martial artist and a sword repairer, behaves in a veteran manner, treats people and things without leaking, and when the 2 parties parted, he praised himself as one. The old rivers and lakes. When Lu Sun heard this, he smiled. The second shopkeeper is just to be polite with you, don't take it seriously. Yuan Xian languished and took a sip of wine. Fan Yu and Lao Jianxiu looked at each other and smiled, and Lu Xie really got it right. Yomo believed the boy's words. Lu Sun put down his chopsticks, raised the bowl, and faced the 3 of them. He didn't say anything, just drank it in one fell swoop. Yuan Xian also learned something, biting his scalp, and drank half a bowl of Xianxia wine in one breath. The 2 of them were relieved, and they also raised their drinking bowls and drank 10 points together. Shao Xian, when I have time, I will take brother Lu and girl Fan to Luomahi as guests. Lu Xie stood up and folded his fists to bid farewell, and finally smiled and said, remember to check out. Yuan Xian waited until Uncle Lu walked out of the small restaurant, and then took a deep breath. Obviously, it was not as easy as it appeared on the surface. The old man laughed with his heartfelt voice. Master, now you feel the power of a bottleneck sword immortal in the nascent soul realm, right? Yuan Xian nodded vigorously. The talented Uncle Lu made the teenager feel too strange. The man walks alone in the alley. Some things, like drinking, have great stamina. It's like having been to the Great Wall of Jianghu. And Xiufeng Temple in Beipingzu that has not been occupied by anyone, a wandering weird fairy on the sea, Jinjia's ancient immortal gift to the mountain city Guanhelu, and Fuyazhou's hidden treasures of infinite business opportunities and wealth. Mineral veins among the 4 seas, many old Longgong sites and Xianfu sites that have been lost for many years continue to emerge. This is the result of the Haoran world bordering the wild world, and then briefly connecting with the Qingming world. There is a female sword immortal in Sinyu Longzong who came to sign for Yin some time ago. It is Nailan Xuanhuan of the Great Wall of Jianghu. This has relieved the battered cloud signatures in recent years. Yunxian is not good at handling sect affairs, so Yunxian did not hesitate to follow the secret agreement of his early years, and took the initiative to resign from the sovereign without saying a word, giving way to an outsider like Nailan Xuanhuan, and acting as the master of the rule. Fortunately, the Yulongzong today is no longer the old-fashioned big sect. The old system of the ancestors of the ancestors and the ancestors of the ancestor hall have long been in vain. With the addition of the predecessor Lord Cloud Sign, It is the only one to go to the 5 realms. The monk, coupled with Nalen Kaihuan's background and the realm of swordsmanship, were shiningly there, so the change of the suzerain was fairly smooth. Nalen Xianhuan also brought a group of confidants and joined the Yulong sect. There were only 6 of them, 3 sword repairmen, 3 ghost repairmen, and 6 of them were all earth immortals. Only in the newly built Patriarch Hall, a simple scribble resignation and succession ceremony was held. To be honest, Yunxian did not invite any important monks. In the early years he took the disciples of the sect to travel to the east of the 3 continents, and did not accumulate too much mountain incense. Today's meeting in the Patriarch's Hall is over, and the monks with chairs have dispersed. They go back to their homes. The advantage of the few people in the sect is that a monk in the Dragon Gate realm can easily occupy a large sea island to open a dojo. Only one clan master is left. Nalen Xianhuan was sitting in the chair of the leader at the moment, leaning her legs carelessly, flipping through a thin book of landscape genealogy. In the early years in the accountant of Chunban's High, the old lady was the same virtue, who can control it. Of course, Nalen Xianhuan will only converge a little when someone comes to upside Xianshan to check the accounts. In fact, Nalen Xianhuan came to Yulongzong's first meeting at the Patriarch's Hall. As soon as everyone heard her name, they had no objection. Of course, it's not that I didn't really have it, but I didn't dare to have it, or I didn't dare to have any expression on her face. Chop it to death on the spot and throw it out to feed the fish? To reason with you? Nalen Kaihuan's flying sword and realm, as well as her consistent behavior style, are just unreasonable on the table. You know, on the battlefield of the new lord's hometown, Nalen Xianhuan, Chisho, and Miyu, who won the nickname of me in the nascent soul realm, are all the same methods of killing monsters, extremely bloodthirsty, tyrannical and cruel. None of the monster cultivators who fell in their hands had a good end. Therefore Nalen Xianhuan, together with a cloud sign with a gentle nature and soft words, 2 suzerains, is 1 heaven and 1 earth. Nalen Xianhuan finished reading the Patriarch's genealogy with a few eyes, and had to read it again, squinting at the cloud sign, and asked with a smile, "I heard you have looked for the Shuijing Palace several times?" The cloud sign was a little guilty and he said with a face, "It's all gone back in vain." Nalankai was irritated and didn't fight. "Are you a fool who has treasures on the ground when you are a wild monster? Yunchi, with you as a master of discipline, I am really fortunate to have this sect master." Yunchi blushed slightly and said nothing. Even if she has heard it anyway, she has not listened much in her life, from the former sect master, to the members of the Yulong Ancestor Master Hall, and even some qualified juniors, even inside the Shuijing Palace. Yulongzong was built in the Shuijing Palace on the upside-down mountain in the early years. At the beginning, Jiang Yunxing, the guardian of the upside-down mountain, directly overturned and fell into the sea. Knowing that the possibility of her finding the Shuijing Palace is extremely small, the cloud sign still has a trace. Fortunately, he tried several times and dived into the bottom of the sea, but failed to find a trace. In a sect, aside from the Yupu realm monks who supported the scene, there were only 5 Earth Immortal monks for Jin Dan and only 1 Yuaning. At present, there are only more than 90 genealogical monks recorded in the Patriarch Hall. This is the cloud signing to bring together the islands of the old sect and vassal, otherwise it will be even more bleak. Among them, the old Yuaning, when Yunxian ran to win in a few years ago, actually fell into trouble, shamelessly put forward a suggestion, saying that as long as she signed with Yun Yun as a Taoist companion, he would be willing to serve as the consecration of Sinyu Longzong. Take out all the family background. If she can't save face, then he will take a step back, and it is okay to have a few nights in the spring festival and rain. If this was the Yulongzong who had always respected the female monk in the early years, a Yuaning monk of the tribal forces, who dared to talk so much, it wasn't about death. Yun Qian also knew that he was indeed too weak in character and had an empty realm, otherwise the senior sister who killed Guojue would not be sent to the Fallen Mountain, and he was only in charge of a water palace in name. Yun Xian never intervenes in specific business transactions. The monks in charge are the confidants of the senior sister's line. The so-called annual check of the account book is just a formality. It is ridiculous to say that Yun Xian is mainly worried that if oneself appears too irrelevant, I will be reprimanded by the senior sister for not caring about the affairs of Shuijing Palace. Nalen Xianhuan squinted and said, "That old woman was absent-minded just now, so she didn't listen to what I said. She looked sneakily and often glanced at you. Did you talk to you and whispered something?" Yun Shi shook his head. "Nothing." Nalen Xianhuan frowned and said, "Yun Sign, don't forget who is the sovereign now, and you will answer honestly what I ask." Yunqi still hesitated for a long time and finally said it vaguely, only to say that the former sect masters the law, hoping that he can ignore the previous suspicions, and help each other in the same boat from now on. Let the Yulong sect rise again. Nayland Xianhuan sneered and said, if I don't come to be the sect master, I will only be able to get that old guy to succeed sooner or later. Yunqi blushed, embarrassed, and glared at the bare-mouthed woman sword immortal. Nayland Xianhuan tweeted endlessly, looking at the female nun from head to toe. Yunqian looks thin but she has a plump body, and she looks cold, but she has a natural and charming appearance. Probably this is humizi, but it is not the kind of tricky tricks all the time. Recruit bees and butterflies. Nayland Xianhuan took out a jug of wine and started to talk horribly before drinking it. If it weren't for a lady, I would definitely be greedy for you, take a bath for you every day, and smear your whole body with a halatsi every night. Yunqi was trembling with anger, holding the handle of the chair with both hands, and said angrily, Nayland Xianhuan, please speak carefully. Yo, I didn't call the sect master, I just called him by name, and it seemed that I was very angry. Nayland Xianhuan curled her lips. It's really uncomfortable. You can only hide from the Great Wall of Sword Qi. Yunqi took a deep breath. Sect master, don't make this kind of joke again in the future. Nayland Xianhuan glanced at her ups and downs, then looked down at her chest and said in a low voice, people are more popular than others. Yunxian began to close his eyes and rest his mind. Nayland Xianhuan closed the genealogy booklet and wiped her neck across her neck, seemingly joking. Yun signed, otherwise I will help you get rid of this nascent infant who only eats and doesn't do anything. It's meaningless to keep it, it's bothersome and unsightly. The main reason is to get a large amount of fixed salary in vain every year, which makes Nalankai feel distressed when he thinks about it. Yun Qian immediately opened his eyes and said with a flustered expression, you can't behave like this, even if you just resign from his patriarch hall status, you need to find a valid reason, otherwise it will be difficult for us Yulongzong to attract new worship and guest. Even if someone is willing to take refuge in us, do we really dare to accept it? Yun Xian looked serious and said solemnly, Nayland Xianhuan, although I am not good at business, and I am not suitable to be the master of the overall situation, but I understand a truth. If something is slightly uncomfortable, I will use it. Killing this way to solve the problem is absolutely undesirable. If you insist on doing this, no matter what, I dare not let you continue to be the sect master of the Yulong sect. Whether you scold me to usurp the throne or say that I abandon the oath, I will to make this clear to you, I would rather Yulongzong fall apart again, and the monks are displaced. Even if you completely lose the first name of the zone because of this, I will never allow myself to hand over a sect to a monk who likes to kill indiscriminately. I will never watch Yulongzong go astray. Nayland Xianhuan leaned back, tilted her legs, leaning on the back of the chair, silently, tapping the handle of the chair within turn. Yun Xian stared at her with firm eyes. Nayland Xianhuan smiled suddenly, okay, I'm just joking, he'll take you seriously. That Yuaning, I will be reasonable with him, and I must learn more from you with a kind of peace of mind. The attitude, the pleasant face, the gentle and drizzled tone ensure that this Yulongzong's four hands can be taken care of, and it can be used by my Yulongzong. I must have done what I said. Looking back, I found the old Yuaning and asked him if he wanted to die. The fool wanted to die. That Yuaning wasn't a fool and definitely didn't want to. Then she could ask the second question. Can she practice more in the future? Zongmen can do more things to earn money, and they can save a few kilograms of halatsi for our Zanglian signing. The old Yuaning may be duplicity, then give him a sword, small wounds and no murder, then the old Yuaning will have a long memory. Finally, I asked him one more question. Do you dare to leave Yulongzong secretly? Do you want to be a Shanzhua Yeshio who dines and sleeps all year round? Yun Xian asked tentatively, Sect Master is really kidding? Nayland Xianhuan was a little helpless. Just by her name, she knew the mind of the cloud sign. Nayland Xianhuan was a little reluctant to tease and bully her, so she changed her mind and said in her heart, I'm actually already in the Jade Pu realm. They're just right to ask the sword. You remember to keep it secret. Yun Xian quickly got up and was about to congratulate the Lord. Nalankai smiled and said, I just told you to keep it secret, please sit back. Yun Xian had to sit back in the chair obediently, with a cheerful expression on his face as charming as a girl. After Nayland Xianhuan left the Great Wall of Jianxi, he first went to the Shanshui grottos on Fuyao Island, claiming to be from the Dangshin mountain Chunbanzhai, took over the sect, and then started business with a secular dynasty next to the mountain. The native female cultivator of Fuyaozhou called Gongyan, her realm is not low, she is in the Yupu realm, but in the eyes of Nayland Xianhuan, this kind of Howren cultivator from the clan genealogy is almost the same as the Yunchi in someone's words, it's just a realm of paper and bamboo strips, but Gong Yen, the anti-Gong Yen, is not good at fighting and her business is pretty good. Anyway, Nayland Saihuan knew that Xianshui Cave was not a place to stay for a long time. She sold the property with her left hand, and recovered the god's money and the treasures with her right hand. She quickly made a lot of money. Of course, she didn't dare to take it all in her pocket, but only collected it. 20% of the benefits, the rest is given to a gentleman in the Confucian temple who is in charge of the money. It seems that he has been promoted now and he is working as the deputy head of an academy in Fuyazu. It is not that Nayland Saihuan thinks about the money, but that he is worried about being settled by someone in the fall. Although the young hidden official didn't restrain her, Nayland Kaihuan's way of making money would still be measured and dare not go beyond the boundary. After she emptied the heritage of the Xianshui caves, she traveled all the way north successively to Jinjiazu and Luxiazu, and still traveled all the way to business. Speaking of Nayland Saihuan, just a square inch of things, she carried 6 with him, not to mention there are 2 things that are close by. Nayland Saihuan asked with a smile, "Our hidden official, you have signed a cloud in Yulongzong but you have great virtues. Have you thought about it? How can we repay you in the future?" As soon as Yun Xian heard about this, she seemed very assertive, but she was about to speak, so she listened to Nalan Kai's old manner and began to say those undecent words, "It's better to be more straightforward. So, what if you can't see people? Yulongzong, isn't there a secret that is extremely difficult to cultivate successfully, isn't it? I heard that even your senior sister failed to learn it, but it's you. Silly, it seems to be hailed as Farong warm tent, cloud and rain state?" Yunchi sighed and simply stopped talking. That young hidden official, how well strategized, how high he held his own standards, but it is a pity that he has not been able to see it with his own eyes. The person who wanders at night, where's the stars and where's the moon? For some reason, Yunxian has heard some rumors about the Great Wall of Sword Qi, and every time she imagines a young foreigner in the wine shop, amidst the hustle and bustle of the people, she feels that when he lowers his head to drink, she will look extraordinarily lonely. Yunchi and Nayland Saihuan walked out of the Patriarch Hall together with their own thoughts. Within a few days, distinguished guests came to the door, and the Yunxian was no stranger. It was Xiao Yunyan, the sword fairy of Chunfan's High, and Mrs. Yen Yen from Meihuayuanzi. If you add Liu's Yuanshan Mansion, the 4 private houses of Upside Down Mountain in the past can be made up. Mrs. Yen Yen was going to take a trip to the Green Plum View of Nantang Lake and Aquarius Island, and planned to meet Zhou Qianglin. Without the of the sword fairy, Mrs. Yen Yen herself would dare to wander around alone. So I passed by the Yulongzong who changed the dynasty, and Mrs. Yen Yen was surprised that Nayland Saihuan became the suzerain inexplicably. Xiao Yunyan knew about this early, so it was not surprising. In Yulongzong, Mrs. Yen Yen and Yun signed a conversation about the past, and Xiao Yunyan and Nayland Saihuan walked side by side. In the previous Spring Fanjai account, besides the 2 of them, there was Yen Ming. In addition, Wei Wenlong was in charge and Mi De Jiangxian was in charge. "Look at the door." Xiao Yunyan smiled and said, "In fact, it hasn't been a few years, but it feels like a world away." Nayland Saihuan smiled and put it away, except to talk to her about money, she had nothing to be interested in. Xiao Yunyan said something in his heart, Nayland Saihuan was shocked and blurted out, "What? Seriously? Qin Pingan can actually engrave in the city?" Xiao Yunyan smiled and said, "Believe it or not, it's a big deal. You look back and take a look for yourself, it's not a few steps away anyway." Nayland Saihuan sighed heavily and said helplessly, "Believe it or not, it's not weird to put it on that guy." To tell the truth, Nayland Saihuan was really embarrassed by the young hidden official, not much better than Mrs. Yen Yen. Both of them have suffered sturdy suffering in each other's hands. Does this guy have any hatred with the good-looking woman? But he was on the cloud signing side, so he took care of it. Nayland Saihuan suppressed the shock, and began to pull strong, and invited Xiao Yunyan and Mrs. Yen Yen to serve as the guest of the family's sect. Since they are all acquaintances, it hurts feelings to talk about money. Xiao Yunyan's swordsmanship skills are based on the many sword gourds grown from that bunch of gourd vines. If you rest on the Great Wall of Sword Qi, it's only average, but in the Howren world he has good connections. Xiao Yunyan didn't care if he had a more famous guest status. There are some kind of wealthy monks in the upper 5 realms who enshrine a lot of titles. And Mrs. Yen Yen had a good relationship with Yun Qian in the early years, and of course there is no objection. Xiao Yunyan did not stay in Yulongzong for a long time, but only stayed for 2 days, dragging the Lady Huayan who wished to live there to continue traveling across the sea. During the period passing by Luhua Island's lucky grottos, Mrs. Yen Yen began to wander around again, and Xiao Yunyan had to remind, "Are you really visiting the mountains and playing water?" Mrs. Yen Yen cast a wink. The hidden official didn't give a definite deadline, so I'm not in a hurry. Getting along with Chen Ping is only good, fair in business and very refreshing. Xiao Yunyan finally stopped Mrs. Yen Yen. Instead of going to the blessed land of Yuguazong's cloud caves, he chose to take an intercontinental ferry halfway and head straight to the old dragon city of Aquarius. At the boundary of Nantang Lake, Mrs. Huayan glanced at the ruined plum trees. She stretched out her hand and rubbed her eyebrows and said, "It's so terrible, how can it be so terrible? The hidden officer gave me a big problem. Because of that bunch of gourd vines, Xiao Yunyan is half an expert in cultivating plants and trees, and even more entertaining than the average farm monk." Xiao Yunyan nodded and said, "It's really difficult, but it's not good. Don't force it. The hermit will not mind." Mrs. Yen Yen smiled. "No? It's normal for Xiao Jianxian to fail, man." Xiao Yunyan turned a deaf ear, just said, "Either you don't intervene if you really want to help King Miguan restore his old appearance, you will spare no effort." Mrs. Yen Yen rolled her eyes and said, "I want you to say it?" Together, the two of them crossed the surface of Nantang Lake and headed to the island where King Miguan is located. Falling out of the gate of King Miguan, the concierge is a young girl in the cave realm. Mrs. Yen Yen handed out two famous posts that had been prepared a long time ago. They were made of red paper and written on a line of lacquer, Mei Tiao, the owner of the road number Mei Hua. Xiao Yunyan glanced at his famous post and smiled helplessly. "Xiao Shansher. It's a very elegant name and it doesn't even have a Dao name." Mrs. Yen Yen smiled and said, "We are from Nan Pasua Island. I heard that the plum blossoms in Nantang Lake are so beautiful that I came here admiringly." She pretended to look around. Hearing is worse than seeing. The little concierge girl looked embarrassed. Isn't this visitor joking? Xiao Yunyan refused to let Mrs. Yen Yen continue to talk nonsense and said with a smile, "In passing by the precious land and discussing with Qing Mei for 2 bowls of plum soup." The girl asked cheeky softly, "The 2 guests besides the famous post, do you have a Xuanhuan pass issued by Dali?" If it was in the past, the Qing Mei view was not so particular about it, but now it is different from the past, and the Dali rules are placed over there, and no one dares to take it seriously. Xiao Yunyan nodded and said, "Yes." He took out 2 copies of the customs clearance on the mountain from his sleeve, and used it at the sect ceremony of the Luapa mountain that year. Moreover, the Dragon Elephant Sword sect settled down in Nan Pasuajo, and he and Mrs. Yen Yen were both practical. The genealogical monk is now out, and of course he will carry the Guan diary with him. Xiao Yunyan's share is of course his real name. Guan Diao needs to indicate the top of the mountain as usual. Mrs. Yen Yen used a pseudonym, surnamed Mei in Chinka, and gave herself a Taoist name, Huangxian. The girl was already clever. When she saw the Dragon Elephant Sword sect above Guanzhong, she was shocked, her eyes widened, and after she was sure that she was right, she immediately returned Guanzhong and hit Xiao Yunyan with a Taoist inspector. Yen Yen gave a blessing and respectfully said, "I have seen Xiao Jianxian Mei Jianxian. Don't care about the other party's realm as long as it is the genealogical monk of the Dragon Elephant Sword sect." Shouting Sword Fairy, surely that's right. No matter how ignorant, the girl also knows the Dragon Elephant Sword sect, which is an unattainable sword sect. Qilao Jianxian from the Great Wall of Jianqi leads. There is also a female great sword immortal named Lu Ji in the sect. I heard that there are very few disciples in the sect today, and without exception they are all Sword Fairy embryos. Anyway, they are all big people who are far away. I never thought I was so lucky, and I saw 2 of them today. Mrs. Yen Yen couldn't help but laughed and covered her mouth with a smile. "Oh, I'm respected as Xiao Jianxian." The girl was timid and changed her words, "Sword Fairy Xiao?" Mrs. Yen Yen worked hard to hold back her laugh. Xiao Yunyan became increasingly helpless. Leading 2 distinguished guests all the way to see the master, the girl took the courage and asked in a low voice, "Xiao Jianxian Mei Jianxian, do you recognize Mr. Lu?" Nowadays there are countless female cultivators in the world who admire Lu Ji. This female great sword immortal, whose hometown is clearly vast, but unique, always regards the Great Wall of Jianqi as her hometown, and can regard Jianxiu as her hometown. With outstanding combat exploits and distinctive personality, it is rumored that Lu Ji has grown to be an overwhelming country, and is one of the 10 pinnacle sword immortals of the Great Wall of Sword Qi. He can participate in the legendary discussion of the city head. Today, the monks in the world have heard a lot about the Great Wall of Sword Chi because too many people like to talk and more people like to listen, so there is a saying that, a meal can't tell you everything. For this young maiden cultivator, more interest and thoughts are still in Lu Ji. Of course, there is also Ning Yao, who is said to be a pair of gods and family members with the last hermit. Xiaoyunyan smiled and said, "There are not many people in our sect, so of course we recognize Mr. Lu." Mrs. Yan Yan stretched out her hand and rubbed the cheeks of the girl next to her and smiled, "I admire us alone, Mr. Lu. Xiaonizi is really good-sighted." The girl blushed. There are many withered plum trees in the view of a green plum. The dead trees are like spring and countless new branches bloom in an instant. Mrs. Yan Yan said heartily, "I have lost my life for 300 years. Xiao Yunyan smiled and said, "I'll talk to Master Hermit by myself." Mrs. Yan Yan immediately changed her words with a guilty conscience. "At least 200 years. I didn't know what I said, but with the temper of hidden officer, I will definitely come here to check it out. 120 years, 1 year less, my surname will be with you. The false report is 150 years. I don't think the problem is big." "Xiao Yunyan, you don't know how to face one set and another set behind, do you? After all, we are the same door, don't we have this trust? Don't blame me. I will take it seriously." "Forget it, let me explain to you. In fact, it was meant by the hidden officer. You are allowed to make false reports of 20% to 30%. Chidu waters, Dai Yunling, mountain shrines and temples in the middle of Aquarius Island. In an instant, the mist rose and filled the temple. An uninvited visitor came to the mountain temple today, and saw the woman covered in a mask with a slender figure, a long sword hanging from her waist and a golden sword ear. A strong and extremely strong aura of water luck, if it weren't for the opponent to suppress the water god's atmosphere deliberately. Do Yin, a small mountain with a low rank, probably feels like a mundane drowning suffocation. Do Yin recognized the identity of the other party, did not dare to neglect, and immediately walked out of the golden statue of the god, and hurriedly changed into a mountain official gown that he hadn't worn for a long time, so as not to lose courtesy. Just now he took a closer look, and besides the other party's hanging sword, there was also a standard waist card of the Dali Ministry of Gifts, which was the font of the patriarch of the Shui Zhao family that day. Chidu Changchunhao Yanghua. After landing, the mountain Jin made a salute. Dianling Doyin, pay homage to Chidu Changchunhao. Xuanhuan came here, and the little has lost a long way to welcome him. Xuanhuan nodded indifferently, and glanced at the incense burner on the long table at her feet. It seems that it is impossible to give birth to the incense villain based on Dai Yunling's own mountain fortune. It's just that the stability of the dragon veins and roots of the Dayunling Mountains made Yanghua a little surprised. If we say that the foundation of a sect depends on the number of Kaifeng Dixian, then the courtyard depth of Dadu princes such as Yanghua depends on the number of temples and temples within the jurisdiction. Whether there is an incense villain in a landscape temple is the most intuitive threshold. Once you cross it, you will be able to feed back the golden body and improve your rank faster. Therefore, the importance of the incense villain is similar to that of the monk's golden pill. Do Yen was still worried about the situation of his friend Xin Wenxian. The mountain gave up all the obscure officialdom, and planned to bite the bullet and go straight to the sky, and open the skylight with Chang Chunhao to speak up. If Yanghua really personally asked the guild today, jumped to Bo. Then Do Yen and Dai Yunling could share a few points for Xin Hebo, so they cautiously asked. Ho Jun came to the humble house, but because of Xin Wenqian's changing the river into a lake? Do Yen is really not guilty of conscience. Without the permission of the Dali court and the Chidu mansion, he would dare to build a lake without authorization. Yanghua turned a deaf ear, and took the lead to cross the threshold of the ancestral temple and walk towards a bamboo viewing pavilion built on the edge of the cliff. The invisible woman Dadu Ho Jun, after stepping into the pavilion with one hand down, holding the hilt with the other hand, looking at the Chaobo River, which has been completely dried up due to the diversion, and not far away is a border with the Dayunling Mountains. Xin Wenqian's brand new lake. The water is clear, and many aquatic people who originally jumped into the Bo River were not drawn into the lake by Xin Wenqian's water method. The diversion of the Dadu this time is of great importance and involves a wide range of people. There are as many as millions of people who need to leave their hometowns. Therefore, Dali Capital and the accompanying capital jointly transferred a total of 5 servants from the 3 departments of Li, Gong, and Hu, and specially prepared a temporary yamen for the diversion of Dadu, and jointly supervised the matter. Zhongyue and Changchun Linlishan and the 2 governments were responsible for the coordination. Only to say here, the 6 tributaries of the river including the Chaobo River have been abandoned. Except for Xuanhuan's good luck and a blessing in disguise, he got a lake that fell from the sky. There is no need to migrate to another place. The water gods and Hebo of the other 5 tributaries can only honestly follow the established plan of Dei and have to abandon the original temples and water houses. The position of the golden body must be changed or leveled to another high-level water god's mansion, to serve as an official of the water mansion, or to lower the golden jade genealogy to serve as the new river god, and the loss of the migration of the golden body. The Dali court can only give a certain amount. Gold and copper coins can make up at most 70% to 80% of the gold body, and the rest can only be filled with local people's incense. Fortunately, in the misfortune, it is this kind of migration that requires water gods to post mountains and mountain gods waiting. Although it hurts the spirits of the mountains and waters, it will not hurt the roots of the gods. Dou Yin followed Xianghua tremblingly all the way, and he became more and more drumming in his heart. Seeing her posture, did she really have a guilt with Master Xuanhuan? Regardless of the officialdom, no matter when I meet a new boss, I like to ask questions about the roots and roots. For example, the rich and noble children would ask the surname of the county. If you are from a poor background, you should ask the mentor, the imperial examination teacher, and the house teacher, especially who the old master is. Dou Yin is not that dead-headed friend, my neighbor, Xuanhuan, whether he was an official during his lifetime or a heroic deity who became a shelter after his death, he obviously needs to be more active. The incense accumulated in the officialdom of the landscape is also more, and the gossip should be more informed, so listen to it early. Speaking of the rumors and deeds of this Changchun Hojun, he has a big background and a bigger backing. The land of Dali Jingji, a group of big and small immortal mansions, seems to be called the Changchun Palace. One of the old ancestors is also one of the tomb guards of the Longxing land of the Dali Song clan. It is rumored that the Queen Mother Nanzhan from Yuzhang County, Hangzhou, was a queen when she was a queen, and she had left Beijing on an order, and set up Qingxiu at the Changchun Palace, and Yanghua was the confidant maid of the Queen Nanzhan. After a few years, Yanghua, the of water of the Chefu River, now happens to be the Changchunho who fills the gap for Chidu. Coincidence? Who doesn't envy? Although Yanghua's water rank remains the same, she is still the third-rank water god, but regardless of whether it is in the jurisdiction of the waters or the real power, Yanghua is undoubtedly promoted. This is like the head of the Shao Jiuqing Yamen of the imperial court. How can he follow the official ranks? The same 6 servants are on par. Moreover, the Chefu River is located in Old Longzhou, the mainland of the Dei dynasty. The boundary of Longzhou is a place where gods and spirits gather. It is also a neighbor to Piyun Mountain where the Lord of Beiyue sits on a continent. The Fugua County, which is similar to the officialdom of the mountain, is sent under the fence, so it is of course a first-class beauty to come to Dadu to be an official in the middle of the continent. Regarding the temporarily vacant Chefu River god of water, some said it was promoted from the Sanjiang god of water in Hangzhou town, or it was transferred from outside. Dou Yin doesn't really know how much Ho Jun's anger can really bear for Xuanhuan Xiao Dai Yinling. The first thing Yanghua did when he assumed the post of Dadu Changchun Ho was to give all his subordinates a decree to the gods of mountains and waters, without them having to come to congratulate him. Therefore there are still many masters of Xuanhuan in the southern border of Dali, and even this Changchun Hojun has not been able to meet. Because Yanghua intends to travel to the mountain shrines, water palaces, earth temples and city temples at all levels on her site within 2 years, similar to private visits in a microservice, without notifying any temples in advance, she will personally examine the number of gods in various ways. After 2 years, all subordinates will be called up, promoted and demoted. Should she be rewarded or punished, everything should behave according to the rules of the home mansion, and all the subordinates of the home mansion who are lazy and appointed, local if you think you can lie on the merit book and enjoy your blessings, just wait. According to the new regulations promulgated after the Confucian Temple meeting, except for the ritual system of the Jianghu genealogy, it almost completely copied the Dali dynasty. In addition, the Confucian sages have also formulated a landscape ordinance. The 3 high-level water gods and 1 or 2 Shuijing Gongbohao can be proclaimed on all continents. At present there are only 1 marquis and 1 uncle in Chidu of Aquarius, Yanghua. The Marquis of Changchun, the drizzling uncle of the water dragon in Fengshui cave of Qiantang River, there is no water in Aquarius Island, who can obtain the Duke of Dadu Shuijun, and the position of Shuijing is temporarily vacant. Nowadays, the sages of the Middle-earth Confucian Temple who held the abbot of Howran's landscape enclosing ceremony, such as the 4 Sea Kings and the Middle-earth 5 Sacred Mountains, will be personally shown by a certain deputy head of the Confucian temple. Dadu Gong Ho Bo is a wine ceremony presided over by a certain academic palace. Then the next step is Shui Gong Si Yi and Izhou Local Academy Mountain Leader. Leaving the Chefu River, which has only a mere rank and a false title, and there are not many things that can be done, but now on mighty central Dadu 40% of the waters are under her jurisdiction, and in the officialdom, that the Qiantang chief Old Jiao who established the Taoist temple in Fengshui cave is just the emperor's seal as a drenched man, which is even lower than her Changchun marquis. As long as Chidu has no public suffix for a day, Yanghua will blaspheme many water gods. The first one. The Dali court did it deliberately, that is, to let the water of one continent compete for that prominent position based on merit and personal experience. Yanghua retracted her gaze, sat in the pavilion, and did not deliberately let the Doshan sit down, as if she was so approachable. Do Yin just stood up and answered, "Whether you are qualified to sit down depends on your ability. If it is a question and answer that makes her extremely dissatisfied, can you Do Yin keep the position of the Daiyunling mountain god?" Next, she and Do Yin asked a series of questions, such as the increase or decrease in the number of households in the Daiyunling area, the taxation and granary reserves of several prefectures and counties, and the cultural and educational achievements of several Xianxia precepts in recent years. The recompilation of various official and private archway buildings, post-road repairs, and how to dispose of some yizhuangs after they are out of service, are varied. Yanghua not only asked extremely detailed questions, but also the number of childbirths in the last 10 years. Whether the above increase or decrease is evenly shared within the specific prefectures and counties, what is the situation? Yanghua asked them one by one. In short, all the cultural, educational, property and commercial matters on the Daiyunling boundary, in a dozen categories, Yanghua would pick out 2 or 3 questions each. Do Yin could barely answer most of them, and Yanghua was obviously dissatisfied with some of the answers. 4 Do Shanshin, who stood aside respectfully answering questions, pointed out the omissions or slight deviations in the numbers on the spot. He heard Do Yan's scalp numb and felt that he was just a waste of schoolwork. The school Mingtong met a teacher who is rigorous in teaching. "Here I will check my homework carefully." This made Do Shanshin feel anxious and a bit weird. He started to admire his old friend Sun Wenqian. Anyway, Tsinhibo would only be quick and clear when he encounters similar problems. The reason for Do Yin Shui remembered the strange stranger he had encountered before, a green-shirt guest who was mistaken for an official of the Ministry of Industry of Dali at the time. When he first appeared on the banks of the Bo River, he even made fun of Sun Wenqian. Hearing that it is called a yin and yang strangeness, what is it that Tsinhibo really has a weak temperament, disdain to operate, and doesn't care about the amount of incense? The people along the way of jumping on the Bo River, there are only 2 rules, who were born in the same jinshi for 200 years. Could it be something that is equivalent to a leak of the examination questions? Remind in advance? Is it because he is very familiar with Changchun Ho Yanghua's style of acting, so he reminded Sun Wenqian and himself early? I was still treating it as a joke at the time, and I felt that the guy talked roundly and cursed Sun Wenqian. He was quite relieved, but it turned out he became a joke now. Yanghua was quite satisfied. After all, she asked 30% of the questions beyond the scope of Shanshan's position. It can only be said that the flood of Daiyunling Mountain Shindo did not bring me any surprises, but it was no problem to get a duty test. Yanghua suddenly said, "I heard that Sun Wenqian served as a transit envoy for a country before his death." Do Yin carefully brewed his words. Ho Jun Mingjian and Sun Wenqian were able to stand out from the crowd. Only as the minister of the Ministry of Industry, he was able to deal with the various illusions and interests of the capital and the local government, and finally led the water transport dredging and the preparation of the granary. I have been in office for 3 years and the results have been fruitful. I dare not say anything about the merits of the ages, and only say that Sun Wenqian's posthumous title of Wenduan is not wrong. Yanghua was silent. Do Yin was also helpless. The senior officials crushed people to death. What's more, the official titles of the 2 sides were very different. Most importantly, Yanghua was a Changchun Ho with a high position and power. Therefore, Dali court would not interfere too much in many affairs. Yanghua turned her head and glanced at the old site of the Po River, and said with a smile for no reason, "I heard that the old fish who jumped into the Bo River in the past had the reputation of chewing flowers and eating flowers. Some apricot sea bass inevitably has small regrets, betraying the great poems left by so many literati in poems and history." Do Yin was overjoyed. It's just Yanghua's next question that made Do Yin feel like falling into an ice cave in an instant. Sun Wenxian received an official document from the inspectorate of the Shui mansion before asking the Hebo mansion about the specific reason and process. Why did he not reply for a long time? Dou Yin scolded his mother in his heart, but he did not dare to scold the officials of the inspection department of the home mansion for acting impartially. Nowadays, there are 2 plaques in the Dada Marquis mansion of Changchun, Dada Marquis mansion in Bixiao Palace. One is the official position of the imperial court, and the other is the Shanshui Daochang where the gods open the mansion. There are 16 departments set up as usual, of which the Shuifu Inspection Department is an important government office that is often a major event once dealing with it. Before the home mansion received a letter from Dai Yunling, the end of the letter was printed with one party's private seal, Qin 11. The result was almost a moth. Although it says Changchun Ho Qinqi on the cover, it's not the kind of gives enlightenment or Dao enlightenment that is generally more polite on the cover. But the subordinates of Shuifu who are responsible for sending and receiving official documents and letters, how dare to receive a letter casually, seeing the word Proqi on the cover, and dare to send it directly to the dignified prince? The master of a mansion is so stupid to let His Royal Highness Ho Jun open the seal with his own hands? Moreover, the sender was the sacred Dou of the Yunling Mountains. The subordinates in the Shui mansion had to go through the file entries before they knew that it was a sesame-sized mountain god. This was a mistake. The subordinates who received the letter first found a home mansion as usual. The assistant official in charge of the matter opened the letter together under the witness of this official. Since there were not many old people from Tiefu River and Water Mansion to Dajuhe Mansion, and Yanghua didn't have the habit of being cronyism, so he used some new faces dispatched from Dali accompanying capital. Most of them were extremely lucky and accepted. The old water gods and Narcissus who benefited from the diversion of large and small rivers, even if they are not promoted, can be regarded as Ho Jun's close ministers in the end. In short, it is the right and wrong of the Shanshui officialdom. There are several officials of the Water Mansion who are not low-ranking, and they are not dealing with the little he boats and Wenxian. They have always had grievances, not big or small, and most of them are not pleasing to the eye. Sun Wenqian's temperament is high, and one of the chief officials in charge of the archives department probably felt that he had found a golden opportunity, and immediately took the criminal evidence to find a colleague of the audit department. The latter was responsible for his duties. I sent a letter to Taibo Boats and Wenxian. The content was sternly worded and it was basically official. Among them was something that Sun Wenxian had to make clear. The one who claimed to be Chao Xianxia, but sealed Qin Shirshi. The person who is his true identity and from what mountain. When the chief of the inspection department reported the matter to the Changchunhao, Yanghua did not say anything at the time, but did not ask the inspection department to immediately send people to the Diaobo River, otherwise the inspection department would only wait for the new Changchunhao to nod and arrest him. That Sun Hebo who built the lake without authorization and opened up his private turf is now. But deep down in Yanghua's heart, she had no thoughts of holding the auditing department accountable, but in fact she was already very annoyed at the official revenge of the chief of the Water Mansion. If she had only received the secret letter, Yanghua would have read it and would throw it aside. When nothing happened, Yanghua would ignore it and she would just assume that she had not received the letter. Maybe it will be directly handed over to the Queen Mother Dali in the capital for disposal. She is not familiar with Luopishan at all, and has nothing to do with Chen Pingan. Yanghua is at best acting impartially. Rewards and punishments are distinct. As long as the Daiyunling Mountain God and Xiaobo Hebo do not violate the rules and prohibitions, that is the best. If you want to let yourself take care of the 2 landscape prospects in the future, Chen Pingan thinks too much. As a result of the trouble in my own waterhouse, the inspectorate directly sent an official document similar to Shenwu Taibo, and also bypassed Douyin Daiyunling, which involved Sun Wenqian's need to disclose the identity of Qin 11. She had no choice but to take a trip to Daiyunling and Diaobo River in person. Otherwise, the young mountain owner who is clearly on the Luopa mountain has already written a letter and greeted him, but Yanghua did not deliberately caress about Daiyunling, and Chen Pingan could not fault it. Then this matter, it was deemed that Shui Mansion and Luopa Mountain had revealed their hearts in one go. But now that Yanghua Mingming received the letter, he still let his subordinates in the Water Mansion and deliberately make things difficult for He Boats and Wenxian. The nature of the matter changed. If it is improperly handled, it is equivalent to his Changchun Marquis Mansion heading to the Luopa Mountain. Slap in the face. It's not that Yanghua is not at all incomprehensible, and she no longer wants to cling to Luopa Mountain, nor does she want to have a relationship with Luopa Mountain because of this. had to send a letter to the Dali court, and soon she received a secret letter from the palace of the capital. But they are all from the Changchun palace. Of course, it is the handwriting of the Queen Mother Dali. There is just one sentence in the letter. According to the letter, the Changchun Shuifu can treat Dayunling and Qiaobo River well, provided that it does not violate the Dali Shanshui etiquette system. This made Xuanhuan relieved. It's just that she can't help guessing, Qin Pingan, is this guy calculating herself? Otherwise he could send a letter himself, why let Dayunling Doyen do it for him? Especially in that letter, deliberately in terms of identity, vaguely what distant relatives are inferior to the neighbors of the old Longzhou, written with clouds and fog, especially the sentence wandering away all the year round, I have never been able to visit the Chefu River Water God Mansion. What else is, now that Dadu is busy with official duties, only when Ho Jun is spare time he knows, the kid dares to go to the house and harass. Do you want to be shameless? As long as Qin Pingan writes his identity on the envelope, who dares to embarrass him? I'm afraid I just got the letter so I don't need to open it. I guess I will feel proud, right? What's more, nowadays in the immortal mansion on one continent mountain, who doesn't worry about you Qin Pingan, a young sword fairy who likes to demolish the ancestor hall of others? If you send a letter with someone, only the words "question with the Lord" will be written in it. Although Yang Hua's face was never seen, Do Yin always felt that Lord Ho Jun seemed to be in a bad mood at the moment. Yang Hua stood up and said, Do Yin, since he is a mountain god, he should be a blessing party. In the future, I must continue to work hard. I need to know that the officialdom of Shanshui is not exactly the same as the officialdom of the mountain under my Dali. We all perform our duties, do a lot of things and don't pay attention to things. But as long as we are within our own jurisdiction, monks in the fairy mansion on the mountain, the prefectures and counties on the mountain, we need to pay more attention to everything. Do Yin hurriedly said, the little would like to follow Hujin's teachings. Do flooded in the officialdom, he was afraid of his superior's retreat, instead of being pragmatic. After Yang Hua went to the old site of Taibo Temple, he met the young Confucian student He Bosun Wenqian. When Lord Ho Jun asked about the official documents sent by the inspection department, Sun Wenqian only said that he would just go according to the rules, and he had nothing to explain. Yang Hua said with a smile, the bones are too hard to be an official. Uncle Xiao he still looked calm and replied, the bones are not hard, so what kind of parent official, should the common people only respect the scent and filial piety, and can't see the ancestral tablet official? Yang Hua sneered and said, it's easy to be an upright official, but it's embarrassing to be a good minister. Do Yin can say your words. Just saying it from Sun Hebo's mouth is a bit funny. Sun Wenqian was silent. The saint said that his life is also prosperous, and his death is also sad. He was a tired official to the official book of the Ministry of Ritual. After his death, he gave the crown Prince Taibao and received a beautiful posthumous post. Sun Wenqian is indeed the ultimate grief and glory. My heart is hot, I just hit a wall time and time again. Being an official is actually more difficult than when I was alive. I watched the government in the dark, the monarchs and ministers were faint, and the surrounding landscape colleagues were crowded out everywhere. They joined forces with the temples and martial arts to suppress the Qiaobo River. Behind Mingzhong there are the reading seeds of Qiaobo River's secret lanterns, all of them will be relocated. In the end, they will be titled on the gold list within a few years. In the end, Sun Wenqian can only be depressed and frustrated. Yang Hua didn't bother to talk about official business with Sun Wenqian. The He uncle would occupy the lake and enjoy the blessings after he got older. The Ho mansion will issue a decree to let the descendants of the nearby rivers gather the apricot sea bass and reinvest in them. After raising this lake, I will only treat it as if the Diablo Lake does not exist in the future, and Qin Pingan has a decent confession. Anyway, Sun Wenqian did not succeed in success, but he would not fail. Sun Wenqian saw that the Shuijun of the Ho mansion was about to leave, he hesitated, took out a book from his sleeve and said, Yang Ho Jun, these are some superficial insights from the lower official Chidu, although now Dali is in Dadu. The diversion has been advanced for most of the time, and the hydrological context is clear, but in the eyes of the lower officials, certain things may not be really perfect. Only the Dendrobium River boundary, the officials of the Dali Ministry of Engineering and the Egon Hydraulics, are in terms of the two things of cutting the bend and returning the flow. They too follow the old system of ancient rituals. In addition, the results of the treatment of silt in the three provinces of Wuzhou have been remarkable in the short term, but in the long run, there are many disadvantages. He's anxious. Speaking of this, Sun Wenqian laughed at herself and stopped talking about the unpleasant trivial things. Finally, she only said, I only hope that the officials of the Department of Diversion Department temporarily set up by the Changchun Marquis can take a look. Yanghua took the thick booklet and wondered, why didn't you give it out earlier? Whether Xuanhuan was handed over to his Daduho mansion or the Ministry of Industry of the Dali accompanying capital, there was no problem, and there was no official taboo of leapfrogging. This is because the Dali court has clearly stipulated that the middle and low-level officials are not allowed, and allowed to make an exception for the court to advise on what matters. Therefore, officials can just follow the routine, and there is even no so-called discretionary handling after the fact. The Dali laws and regulations are written extremely clearly and accurately. Xuanhuan replied, I'm not afraid of looking for nothing, I'm afraid of writing for nothing, and eventually occupy a place in a certain Yamen archives. Yanghua went so far as to read the pamphlet and shook his head and said, Xuanhuan, similar ideas, don't have them in the future. Whether it's the newly established Diversion Supervision Agency where the steward gathers together, or the diversion department on my side, this pamphlet is all it is destined to not eat ashes, and in accordance with the court regulations, even if the officials in charge do not adopt your suggestions, they must still give you a definite reply. Both the court and the water mansion need to be recorded. In addition, the officials in the capital city and the accompanying capital, every year, people are sent into the archives room to be responsible for spot-checking official documents, and they will eventually be included in the 4-year assessment of local officials. Yanghua closed the book and suddenly said, Go to your waterhouse and sit for a while. I planned to read the booklet carefully, but Yanghua thought about it a little and then said, Forget it, I am a layman after all. It is difficult to see the pros and cons of the booklet. You can go directly with me to the Water Mansion Diversion Department. You and the Water Mansion officials, I explain the things in the booklet in detail. Although I am a layman, I will participate in the audition. Xuanhuan wondered, Leave right away? Otherwise. Yanghua laughed dumbly and asked, I don't like fishing. Besides, the whole Diablo River has dried up. Or does Tsinhibo plan to do his best as a landlord and invite me to drink? Xuanhuan smiled and said, Being an official is far inferior to Do Shanshan. I can't do things like asking my boss to drink. Yanghua smiled and said, Before I came to your side I actually went to Dayunling first, but I couldn't appreciate the spirit of Doshan God. Xuanhuan wanted to say something but stopped. Yanghua said, Douyin is not bad. There are many things that don't seem to require him to take care of. He is more than enough to be a Dayunling mountain god. Xuanhuan breathed a sigh of relief. One Ho Jun and the other He Bo, each displaying the magical powers of water, went straight to Changchun Ho Shui Mansion, just to take care of Xuanhuan. Yanghua slowed down. Xuanhuan looked down on the mountains and rivers of the earth, and asked indifferently, Can the Dali Imperial Court still maintain the high spirits it is today? At the foot of the mountain, after all, it was the emperor and courtier of that dynasty. What's more, there is no national teacher Cui Yun in the Dali dynasty today. Who can guarantee that the next emperor of the Song family will be a brilliant Mingjun? Will it not change course and the national power of Dali will not go downhill? Yanghua nodded and smiled, It's definitely possible. In fact, this is a highly suspected question, but Yanghua answered without hesitation. Xuanhuan asked, Why is Yang Ho Jun so sure? Yanghua was in a complicated mood, her thoughts drifted away, and she recovered after a moment and said with a smile, Well, just wait and see. You're tuning in to the Sword Dance in the Vast Sky YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.